Welcome, dear listener, to another quiet journey through the hidden history of Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Tonight, as rain taps softly against ancient castle windows and candlelight flickers along empty corridors, we will follow the tragic story of a girl most students remembered only as Moaning Myrtle. Long before Harry Potter arrived at Hogwarts, Myrtle Warren wandered these halls as a lonely student during one of the darkest periods in the school's history. Beneath the laughter surrounding her ghost lies a far sadder tale of fear, cruelty, isolation, and a single terrible moment that changed Hogwarts forever. The Hogwarts that Myrtle Warren entered was not yet the castle later generations would remember from the stories of Harry Potter. It was quieter in some ways, harsher in others, shaped by a world slowly drifting toward another great war. The corridors still glowed with torchlight reflected against ancient stone, and the enchanted ceiling of the Great Hall still mirrored the skies above Scotland. But beneath the familiar magic, there existed a tension that students could feel, even if they did not fully understand it. Outside the castle, Europe was changing. Far beyond the mountains and forests surrounding Hogwarts, the wizarding world had begun whispering the name of Gellert Grindelwald with growing fear. His rise in continental Europe spread uncertainty through magical governments and schools alike. Newspapers, arriving by owl, carried stories of disappearances, political unrest, and dark magical demonstrations that unsettled even experienced witches and wizards. Though Britain remained physically distant from much of the chaos, anxiety moved quietly through the country like winter fog. The Muggle world was no calmer. Another terrible conflict was approaching. Nations armed themselves. Cities prepared for war. Families listened nervously to wireless broadcasts, speaking of invasions and uncertainty. Even many magical families, separated from Muggle affairs by secrecy, could not entirely escape the atmosphere of dread settling across Europe. At Hogwarts, these fears appeared only in fragments. Students overheard professors speaking in lowered voices near the staff table. Copies of the Daily Prophet vanished quickly from the library, reading stands. Older students discussed politics in corners of common rooms, while younger children pretended not to listen. The castle remained protected from the outside world by powerful enchantments, yet the emotions of that world still seeped inward through the people who lived there. Armando Dipé served as headmaster during these years. Unlike the warm eccentricity that later defined Albus Dumbledore's leadership, Dippett's Hogwarts felt formal and traditional. Rules were strictly observed. Students stood when professors entered rooms. Punishments carried weight. The school valued discipline, order, and appearances. Ancient customs remained untouched simply because they had always existed. The castle itself seemed older during this era. The corridors were darker at night, lit by fewer magical lamps. Fires crackled inside massive stone fireplaces, while rain battered tall windows overlooking the Black Lake. Drafts drifted endlessly through staircases and passageways. The portraits along the walls appeared sterner than those of later generations, many painted centuries earlier during darker periods of magical history. Even the suits of armor seemed less decorative and more watchful, as though Hogwarts still remembered times when the castle had genuinely needed defending. The Great Hall remained the heart of the school. Every morning, hundreds of candles floated above long wooden tables, while owls swooped through the enchanted ceiling, carrying letters and newspapers. Yet even here, differences between students revealed themselves quickly. Pure-blood families often arrived already knowing one another. Some students carried old surnames tied to wealth, influence, or ministry connections. Others came from modest, magical households scattered across Britain. Muggle-born students entered the castle differently from everyone else. For them, Hogwarts was not merely a school. It was an entirely hidden world, revealed all at once. Myrtle Warren belonged to that last group. Very little was ever recorded about Myrtle while she was alive. History rarely preserves the ordinary children standing quietly in the corners of great events. Yet even without detailed records, the shape of her life can still be felt through the fragments left behind. She was a Ravenclaw student, intelligent enough to be sorted into the house that valued wit and learning. But she did not possess the confidence or social ease that many associated with Ravenclaw House. She arrived at Hogwarts during a difficult time to be different. The shadow of blood purity ideology had already begun spreading through parts of wizarding society long before Voldemort rose to power. Many students repeated beliefs learned from parents without fully understanding them. Muggle-born children sometimes found themselves isolated socially, treated as curiosities or outsiders by classmates raised within old magical families. For someone shy and emotionally sensitive, Hogwarts could become overwhelming. The castle was enormous, even for confident students. Staircases shifted unexpectedly. Corridors changed directions. Ghosts drifted through walls without warning. Peeves the poltergeist delighted in humiliating frightened first years. Lessons demanded dangerous magic from children barely old enough to control their emotions. Some students thrived within that environment. Others quietly disappeared inside it. Myrtle seemed to shrink against the size of the school around her. The Ravenclaw common room, high within Ravenclaw Tower, was beautiful but intimidating. Moonlight poured through tall arched windows onto shelves of books and clusters of students discussing lessons late into the night. Many Ravenclaws developed reputations for brilliance or eccentricity. Myrtle developed neither. She became known mostly for crying easily. There were always students like Olive Hornby in every generation of Hogwarts. Children who discovered early that humiliation could earn laughter from others. Children who sensed weakness quickly and returned to it again and again. Hogwarts professors disciplined obvious cruelty when they saw it, but much of student life unfolded beyond adult attention. A mocking comment in the corridor, laughter during class, whispers at the dinner table, a cruel imitation behind someone's back. These small humiliations rarely entered school records, yet they shaped lives as surely as any spell. Myrtle struggled deeply with embarrassment. Insults lingered with her long after others forgot them. She cried openly when upset, which unfortunately encouraged further teasing from students who found emotional reactions entertaining. The more isolated she became, the more noticeable her loneliness appeared. And the more noticeable it became, the more easily others targeted her. At night, when the castle quieted after curfew, Myrtle sometimes wandered alone through corridors lit only by moonlight and distant torches. Hogwarts after dark possessed a different personality. The cheerful noise of students disappeared, replaced by creaking stone, whispering portraits, and the distant movement of water deep within the pipes beneath the castle. The wind howled softly against ancient windows overlooking the grounds. Somewhere beyond the walls, the forbidden forest shifted beneath the darkness. The school could feel magical then, in the oldest sense of the word. Vast, ancient, unknowable. For many students, Hogwarts became the happiest place they would ever know. For Myrtle Warren, it slowly became a place where she felt increasingly invisible. Yet at the same time, another student moved through those same corridors with entirely different ambitions. Tom Riddle. Handsome, brilliant, polite, and admired by nearly everyone around him. Riddle represented everything Myrtle was not. Professors praised him openly. Students trusted him instinctively. He walked through Hogwarts with the calm confidence of someone already planning a future far beyond the castle walls. Very few people noticed the darkness growing quietly beneath that perfect surface. The tragedy of Myrtle Warren unfolded partly because Hogwarts during those years remained distracted by larger fears. Grindelwald threatened Europe. War approached the Muggle world. Political uncertainty spread across magical Britain. Within that atmosphere, one lonely girl crying in a bathroom seemed unimportant. But history often changes through moments nobody notices at the time. A frightened student walking alone through an empty corridor. A hidden chamber beneath the school. A boy searching for immortality. And a castle carrying secrets far older than anyone inside it truly understood. Before Myrtle Warren became one of Hogwarts' ghosts, before generations of students whispered about the crying spirit haunting the second-floor bathroom, she was simply a child trying to survive a world that often felt too large for her. Her early life remains mostly hidden from history. Unlike famous witches and wizards whose childhoods were carefully documented in magical biographies, Myrtle left behind almost nothing except the memory of her death. No chocolate frog cards celebrated her achievements. No portraits remembered her accomplishments. Yet the silence surrounding her life perhaps says more about her than grand records ever could. Myrtle Warren grew up in the Muggle world sometime during the 1920s, a period filled with uncertainty, both magical and non-magical. Britain was still recovering from one world war, while unknowingly drifting toward another. Cities expanded beneath smoke-filled skies. Factories crowded the edges of towns. Families struggled through economic hardship while trying to preserve ordinary routines. For magical children born into Muggle households, childhood often carried an invisible strangeness long before Hogwarts arrived to explain anything. Accidental magic appeared without warning. Objects moved when emotions became too strong. Glass cracked unexpectedly. Strange coincidences followed moments of fear or embarrassment. Some children reacted with excitement to these incidents. Others learned to fear themselves. Parents without magical knowledge could offer little explanation beyond confusion or concern. It is easy to imagine Myrtle as one of those children who became frightened by attention rather than drawn toward it. Perhaps classmates already considered her unusual before she ever boarded the Hogwarts Express. Perhaps she struggled socially, even in the Muggle world, retreating into books or quiet corners whenever other children became cruel. Sensitivity often reveals itself early in life, and schools rarely show much mercy toward children who cry easily. Then, sometime around her 11th birthday, the letter arrived. For many Muggle-born children, the Hogwarts acceptance letter transformed reality itself. A hidden world suddenly unfolded behind ordinary life. Strange adults explained impossible truths. Parents learned their child possessed magical ability. Everything familiar shifted overnight. Some children greeted this revelation with wonder, others with fear. Myrtle likely experienced both. The journey to Hogwarts could feel overwhelming, even for confident students. King's Cross Station crowded with rushing travelers. The hidden barrier at platform 9 3/4. The Scarlet steam engine breathing smoke across the tracks. Hundreds of unfamiliar students wearing black robes and carrying owls, cats, or toads. For a shy child, already uncomfortable around strangers, the experience may have felt enormous. The Hogwarts Express itself represented the beginning of social divisions that would follow students throughout their school years. Compartments filled quickly with laughter, introductions, and old friendships continued from magical families who already knew one another. Pure-blood children often arrived carrying generations of wizarding history. Some already understood Quidditch teams, magical suites, ministry politics, and famous wizarding surnames before their first day of school. Muggle-born students entered those conversations differently. They asked questions others considered obvious. They misunderstood traditions. They sometimes pronounced magical terms incorrectly. Even when students did not intend cruelty, the difference remained visible. Myrtle probably noticed it immediately. By the time the boats crossed the Black Lake toward Hogwarts Castle, she may already have felt smaller than the world surrounding her. The castle rising above the cliffs at night seemed less like a school and more like something from ancient legend. Towers climbed into darkness beneath drifting clouds. Thousands of windows glowed with candlelight. The reflection of Hogwarts shimmered across the surface of the lake, while first-year students stared upward in silence. For many children, this moment marked the beginning of belonging. For Myrtle, belonging never fully arrived. The sorting ceremony likely passed quickly for her. A nervous walk toward the stool beneath the enchanted ceiling. The sorting hat lowered over trembling eyes. A moment of whispered judgment. Then applause from the Ravenclaw table as she joined her new house. Ravenclaw House valued intelligence, creativity, wit, and curiosity. Yet those qualities alone did not guarantee happiness within the house itself. Ravenclaw students could be brilliant but distant, deeply intellectual, yet socially unforgiving. Quick minds sometimes produced sharp tongues. Students who struggled socially could easily become isolated within a culture that admired confidence and academic excellence. Myrtle was intelligent enough to succeed in classes, but intelligence did not protect her from loneliness. She appears to have been painfully aware of how others viewed her. Even small embarrassments wounded her deeply. A laugh in the corridor or a mocking comment during lessons stayed with her long after other students forgot it entirely. Some children recover quickly from humiliation. Myrtle carried it with her. The castle provided endless opportunities for such humiliations. Charms lessons where failed spells caused laughter. Potions classes where mistakes filled the room with smoke or strange smells. Transfiguration lessons demanding concentration under the watchful eyes of classmates. At Hogwarts, magical failure was often public. Students laughed when cauldrons exploded. They whispered when someone mispronounced an incantation. Professors corrected mistakes in front of entire classrooms. For children already insecure, the constant exposure could become exhausting. Myrtle gradually developed a reputation for crying. Once a child receives such a reputation, escaping it becomes nearly impossible. Every emotional reaction reinforces expectations. Other students begin watching for tears before they appear. Crueler classmates intentionally provoke them. Even sympathetic students start seeing the person only through that weakness. Olive Hornby became central to Myrtle's suffering during these years. Canon reveals little about Olive beyond her role in tormenting Myrtle, yet her impact on Myrtle's life proved devastating. Olive represented a type of cruelty common in schools precisely because it rarely appears serious to outsiders. She did not become a dark witch. She did not attack Myrtle with dangerous curses. Instead, she mocked her appearance, embarrassed her publicly, and turned Myrtle into a source of amusement for other students. The cruelty seems small when viewed from a distance, but children experience humiliation differently from adults. At Hogwarts, there was nowhere truly private to escape it. Dormitories contained multiple students. Great stone corridors always echoed with movement. Meals took place publicly before entire houses. Even studying occurred inside crowded common rooms or libraries. The few spaces offering solitude became emotionally important, bathrooms especially. Long before the Chamber of Secrets transformed Myrtle's bathroom into one of Hogwarts' most infamous locations, it already served as a refuge for her. Bathrooms allowed privacy unavailable elsewhere in the castle. A locked stall door created temporary safety from laughter and staring eyes. The sound of running water masked crying. Myrtle retreated there often, while other students formed friendships beside fireplaces or explored secret passages after curfew. Myrtle increasingly withdrew from the social life of the school. Isolation became habit. She likely spent evenings alone, while conversations and laughter drifted from distant common rooms. The tragedy of loneliness is that it changes how people move through the world. Confident students walk into rooms expecting acceptance. Lonely students enter already bracing for rejection. Others sense that uncertainty immediately. Conversations become awkward. Silence grows heavier. Even kind classmates sometimes avoid people whose sadness feels difficult to navigate. Over time, Myrtle became more ghost-like, even while alive. Students remembered her crying more than speaking. They noticed her hiding rather than participating. Teachers probably viewed her as emotional but harmless. Another sensitive child who would eventually mature with time. But Myrtle never received that time. As the years passed, the atmosphere around Hogwarts darkened further. News from Europe worsened. Grindelwald's influence spread. Fear and suspicion slowly increased inside magical Britain. Blood purity beliefs gained quiet acceptance in some circles. Muggle-born students sometimes found themselves viewed with growing unease. Tom Riddle moved through this same environment, observing everything carefully. He understood how loneliness shaped people because he carried his own hidden isolation beneath perfect control. Yet where Myrtle's suffering made her retreat inward, Riddle's suffering hardened into ambition and hatred. The two students existed within the same castle while living entirely different realities. One became admired by nearly everyone around him. The other cried alone in a bathroom while classmates laughed outside the door. And somewhere deep beneath Hogwarts, ancient pipes already carried the sleeping presence of something terrible waiting to awaken. Life at Hogwarts during the early 1940s moved according to rhythms that had existed for centuries. The castle woke before sunrise as house elves hurried through kitchens deep beneath the school, preparing breakfast while fires crackled awake inside common room hearths. Owls fluttered through the grey morning sky above the owlery towers. Students dressed sleepily beside four-poster beds, while rain or snow drifted across the windows overlooking the grounds. To outsiders, Hogwarts often appeared timeless. Yet every generation of students quietly reshaped the atmosphere of the school. The Hogwarts of Myrtle Warren's years carried a different feeling from the castle, later known by Harry Potter. It was more formal, less openly affectionate, and marked by the anxieties of a world drifting steadily toward war. Students rose early beneath the watchful eyes of prefects. Uniforms were expected to appear neat. Homework loads were heavy, especially in houses like Ravenclaw, where academic excellence shaped social reputation almost as strongly as personality. Professors tolerated far less disruption than many would decades later. Punishments came swiftly for rule breaking, and detentions often involved unpleasant manual labor around the castle grounds. Despite this strictness, Hogwarts still remained a place of wonder. First-year students hurried through corridors, carrying armfuls of books almost larger than themselves. Charms lessons filled classrooms with floating feathers and accidentally exploding objects. Greenhouses glowed warmly during winter months, beneath enchanted glass, while strange magical plants rustled softly in damp soil. The library stretched endlessly beneath towering shelves, filled with ancient texts smelling of dust and parchment. At night, candlelight transformed the castle into something dreamlike. Portraits muttered quietly among themselves after curfew. Moonlight spilled across moving staircases. Ghosts drifted through walls in silence while distant winds echoed through stone corridors. Somewhere far below the school, unseen pipes carried cold water beneath ancient foundations, older than most magical governments. For some students, Hogwarts felt like home almost immediately. For others, it remained beautiful but unreachable. Myrtle Warren existed on the edges of student life, present without truly belonging to it. By her second and third years, many students likely recognized her face while knowing almost nothing about her. She became one of those figures, always glimpsed alone, carrying books against her chest, hurrying between classes with lowered eyes before laughter or whispers could follow her down the corridor. Meanwhile, another student moved through Hogwarts in exactly the opposite way. Tom Marvolo Riddle entered rooms as though he naturally belonged at the center of them. Handsome, controlled, and extraordinarily gifted, he possessed the rare ability to make nearly everyone around him feel carefully seen. Professors praised his intelligence openly. Students admired his confidence and charm. Younger children watched him with the same fascination. Later generations would direct toward famous Quidditch players or ministry heroes. The contrast between Tom Riddle and Myrtle Warren could not have been greater. Myrtle reacted emotionally to nearly everything. Embarrassment overwhelmed her. Fear showed openly across her face. Tears came quickly whenever she felt mocked or cornered. Riddle revealed almost nothing. Even as a teenager, he seemed strangely composed. His robes remained immaculate. His speech sounded polished far beyond his age. He understood how to flatter professors without appearing insincere. He offered help at exactly the right moments. Other students described him as brilliant, polite, and destined for greatness. Very few people understood how carefully constructed that image truly was. Hogwarts during these years admired brilliance deeply. Students who excelled academically often received enormous respect, regardless of personality. Riddle mastered every subject he touched. In potions, he brewed with frightening precision. In defense against the dark arts, his spell work surpassed many older students. Even professors occasionally seemed unsettled by how quickly he absorbed advanced magical concepts. Yet he never appeared arrogant. That restraint made him even more admired. The social world inside Hogwarts revolved around reputation as much as friendship. Some students became known for athletic skill, others for magical talent or family history. Myrtle's reputation hardened around her sensitivity. Tom Riddle's reputation hardened around excellence. Neither reputation allowed much escape. At meals inside the Great Hall, these differences became visible every day. Hundreds of students gathered beneath the enchanted ceiling, while candles floated above long wooden tables. The noise of conversation rose and fell like ocean waves against stone walls. Owls swooped overhead, carrying letters from home. Silver dishes filled themselves endlessly with food. Yet despite the warmth and abundance, loneliness could still exist there easily. Students clustered into familiar social groups. Pure-blood families often remained connected across generations. Siblings introduced younger brothers and sisters to existing friendships. Quidditch players gathered together discussing matches and broom models. Ravenclaws debated lessons late into dinner, while Slytherins exchanged gossip about influential magical families. Myrtle rarely occupied the center of any conversation. Sometimes loneliness becomes most painful in crowded places. The castle offered endless reminders of other people's friendships. Students laughed beside fireplaces late into the evening. They wandered together through courtyards overlooking the Black Lake. They shared sweets from Hogsmeade during weekends and whispered secrets in dormitories long after curfew. Myrtle often remained outside those moments looking inward. Ravenclaw Tower itself could feel intimidating for students lacking confidence. The circular common room rewarded intellectual quickness. Conversations moved rapidly between magical theory, homework complaints, and witty observations. Students competed subtly through knowledge and cleverness. Myrtle possessed intelligence, but intelligence alone did not guarantee social acceptance. Meanwhile, Olive Hornby continued making Myrtle's life increasingly miserable. Bullying at Hogwarts rarely resembled dramatic duels or dangerous curses. Most cruelty appeared ordinary enough that adults overlooked it. A cruel comment spoken loudly enough for nearby students to hear. Mocking laughter after class. Public embarrassment timed carefully to attract attention. Olive seemed particularly skilled at finding Myrtle's weaknesses. She mocked her glasses. She mocked her crying. She mocked the way Myrtle reacted emotionally to insults. Worst of all, she encouraged others to laugh alongside her. At Hogwarts, social humiliation spread quickly because students lived together constantly. A joke repeated at breakfast followed someone into classrooms, corridors, and dormitories by evening. Embarrassment became impossible to escape. Bathrooms increasingly became Myrtle's refuge from that pressure. The second-floor girls' bathroom was not yet abandoned during these years. Students still used it normally between classes. Water dripped steadily from old pipes, while mirrors fogged beneath warm steam. Myrtle discovered that locked stalls allowed temporary safety from staring faces and mocking voices. Sometimes she hid there simply to cry in peace. Other students noticed this habit eventually. Children often sense vulnerability instinctively. Once Myrtle became associated with hiding in bathrooms, even that refuge carried humiliation. Students joked about it openly. Yet she continued returning because the castle offered so few truly private spaces. Outside Hogwarts, the wider world darkened steadily. By the early 1940s, Europe stood fully at war. Muggle cities suffered bombings. Families vanished beneath violence and uncertainty. The magical world officially separated itself from Muggle conflict. Yet many witches and wizards still carried emotional ties to non-magical relatives and communities. Muggle-born students especially lived between worlds. Some returned home during holidays to neighborhoods blacked out against air raids. Others listened to frightened relatives discussing rationing and battlefield losses without being able to explain the magical world hidden beside their own. The emotional strain of existing between those realities weighed heavily on many students. At Hogwarts, however, life continued according to ancient routines. Students still attended astronomy atop cold towers at midnight. They still practiced levitation charms and brewed sleeping potions. Snow still covered the grounds during winter, while first years marveled at enchanted Christmas decorations filling the Great Hall. The castle protected its students physically from the war outside, but emotional fear still entered through the people themselves. Blood purity ideas quietly strengthened during this period. Grindelwald's ideology in Europe encouraged dangerous conversations even within Britain. Some pure-blood families spoke more openly about magical superiority. Muggle-born students sensed growing suspicion around them even when nobody said anything directly. Tom Riddle watched all of this carefully. Though himself technically half-blood, Riddle despised the Muggle side of his heritage with growing intensity. Hogwarts became the first place where he truly encountered blood purity ideology embedded within magical society. He recognized quickly how prejudice and fear could be manipulated. Unlike Myrtle, Riddle never allowed himself to appear weak. He observed others constantly, while revealing almost nothing about himself. Teachers saw brilliance. Students saw charm. Beneath both masks, however, Riddle moved quietly through Hogwarts, searching for something hidden deep within the castle itself. The legend of the Chamber of Secrets fascinated generations of students. Most treated it as myth. Older students frightened younger ones with whispered stories about Salazar Slytherin's hidden chamber and the monster sleeping inside it. Teachers dismissed such stories publicly, while privately discouraging students from exploring too deeply beneath the school. Yet the legend lingered because Hogwarts itself seemed built for secrets. Hidden passages branched behind tapestries. Doors appeared where none existed before. Strange sounds echoed through walls late at night. Even ordinary staircases shifted direction unpredictably. The castle encouraged belief in hidden things. And somewhere within that enormous ancient school, Tom Riddle had already begun searching for the chamber in earnest, while Myrtle Warren cried quietly, behind locked bathroom doors, only floors above him. Neither of them yet understood how completely their lives were moving toward one another through the darkness beneath Hogwarts. By the time Myrtle Warren entered her middle years at Hogwarts, Tom Riddle had already begun changing in ways few people around him could understand. To professors and students alike, he appeared destined for greatness. He collected awards, earned excellent marks, and spoke with a calm confidence, unusual even among talented witches and wizards. Yet beneath that polished surface, Riddle's attention had turned increasingly toward the oldest and darkest secrets hidden within Hogwarts itself. The castle encouraged such obsessions. Hogwarts had never been merely a school. It was a place layered with centuries of hidden rooms, forgotten magic, and stories that blurred the line between history and legend. Students passed rumors between generations, the way ancient castles carried echoes through their stone halls. Some stories faded quickly. Others survived because the school itself seemed to protect them. The Chamber of Secrets was one of those stories. Nearly every student heard whispers about it eventually. Older students frightened younger ones with tales of Salazar Slytherin building a hidden chamber beneath Hogwarts, before leaving the school centuries earlier. According to the legend, Slytherin had concealed a monster inside the castle, a creature that only his true heir could control. One day, that heir would return, open the chamber, and purge Hogwarts of students considered unworthy of magical education. Most students treated the story like a ghost tale told during storms or long winter evenings. Teachers publicly dismissed it as myth, but Tom Riddle did not dismiss it. The legend fascinated him for deeply personal reasons. By adolescence, Riddle had already discovered fragments of the truth surrounding his own ancestry. He knew he possessed unusual magical abilities beyond those of ordinary students. He understood instinctively that he descended from an old magical bloodline connected somehow to Salazar Slytherin himself. Most importantly, he had begun developing a profound hatred toward the Muggle world and toward his own Muggle father, who had abandoned his mother before Riddle's birth. That hatred slowly became the center of his identity. Unlike Myrtle, whose loneliness made her fragile, Riddle transformed isolation into control. He concealed emotion so completely that even adults struggled to read him properly. Inside the orphanage where he grew up, he had already learned how fear granted power over others. At Hogwarts, he refined that understanding carefully. He became a collector of secrets. The library drew him constantly. not the cheerful reading tables filled with ordinary students completing homework assignments, but the hidden corners where ancient magical texts gathered dust beneath dim candlelight. Riddle read obsessively about Hogwarts history, bloodlines, magical creatures, and the founders themselves. He learned which professors guarded dangerous knowledge closely and which could be manipulated through flattery. The restricted section especially fascinated him. Long before becoming Voldemort, Riddle understood that forbidden knowledge often remained forbidden precisely because it contained real power. He studied late into the evenings, while other students laughed beside fireplaces or discussed Quidditch matches in common rooms. Candlelight flickered across his face while pages turned quietly through the silence of the library. Somewhere within those books, he encountered the deeper history of Salazar Slytherin. The official story described Slytherin as one of Hogwarts' 4 founders who eventually left the school after disagreeing with the others about admitting Muggle-born students. Yet older texts hinted at darker details. They described Slytherin as brilliant but secretive, a wizard deeply skilled in rare branches of magic, feared even in his own era. Most importantly, they described him as a Parselmouth. The ability to speak with snakes remained extraordinarily rare within the wizarding world. Many witches and wizards viewed it with suspicion because of its association with dark magic. When Riddle realized he possessed that same gift naturally, something fundamental shifted inside him. For the first time in his life, he felt chosen. Hogwarts itself seemed to respond differently once Riddle committed himself fully to uncovering the chamber. The castle had always rewarded curiosity, but it also concealed its secrets carefully. Staircases shifted unpredictably. Corridors looped strangely at night. Certain doors opened only under precise conditions. Riddle explored endlessly. While most students slept, he wandered through silent corridors, beneath moonlight, carrying stolen candles or Lumos-lit wands. He searched forgotten classrooms, abandoned storage chambers, and sealed passageways hidden behind tapestries. The castle at night belonged almost entirely to ghosts, prefects, and restless students carrying secrets. Riddle moved among them like a shadow. The pipes beneath Hogwarts fascinated him especially. Massive ancient plumbing systems twisted invisibly through the walls and foundations of the school. Water echoed constantly through them, carrying strange, distant sounds difficult to place. Few students paid attention to such things, but Riddle understood that if the chamber truly existed, it would likely require hidden access large enough for some kind of creature. The basilisk slept below all of them during these years, ancient, hidden, waiting. Its presence remained unknown to almost everyone inside Hogwarts. Professors taught lessons, students attended exams, house rivalries continued beside fireplaces and Quidditch discussions. Yet deep beneath the castle, Salazar Slytherin's final creation remained alive within darkness older than most magical governments. Riddle searched for it patiently. The connection between Parseltongue and the chamber became increasingly obvious as his research continued. Old accounts repeatedly mentioned serpents alongside references to Slytherin. Snake imagery decorated parts of the castle associated with his house. Certain passages within magical histories hinted deliberately at doors opened not by keys, but by voice. The school itself slowly became a puzzle to him. During daylight hours, Riddle remained the model student. He charmed professors effortlessly. Younger students admired him openly. Other prefects respected his discipline and intelligence. Even classmates who found him cold rarely disliked him because he controlled his public image so perfectly. But beneath that image, obsession deepened. He wanted more than academic success, more than admiration. more even than power in the ordinary sense. Riddle wanted permanence. He wanted proof that he belonged to something ancient and extraordinary, rather than the lonely humiliations of his childhood orphanage. Discovering the chamber would confirm what he already desperately wanted to believe about himself: that he was not ordinary, not abandoned, not weak, but the rightful heir to one of Hogwarts' founders. Meanwhile, Myrtle Warren continued living only floors above these hidden searches, without understanding any of it. She likely passed Riddle in corridors many times. Perhaps she even attended classes beside him occasionally. Yet students like Myrtle and students like Tom Riddle existed within entirely separate social worlds, despite sharing the same castle. Riddle noticed people carefully, but he noticed them mainly according to usefulness. Popular students mattered because they strengthened his influence. Professors mattered because they guarded knowledge. Followers mattered because they provided admiration and loyalty. Students like Myrtle rarely entered his attention at all. That indifference would eventually become fatal. The atmosphere inside Hogwarts darkened gradually as Riddle's search intensified. Students began reporting strange sounds at night. Some described hearing movement within walls or pipes. Others mentioned glimpsing shadows near restricted areas of the castle. Most incidents received ordinary explanations. Hogwarts had always contained strange noises and shifting mysteries, yet tension slowly accumulated. The legend of the chamber circulated more frequently through student conversations. Younger children frightened one another with stories during storms. Slytherins whispered about blood purity and ancient magic with growing fascination. Professors dismissed such discussions publicly while quietly monitoring behavior more carefully. No one suspected the truth. The terrifying reality hiding beneath Hogwarts seemed impossible even to imagine. A basilisk sleeping beneath a school for centuries belonged more to medieval nightmare than modern magical life. Most adults believed the chamber itself merely symbolic, another exaggerated legend growing through generations of storytelling. Only Tom Riddle believed completely, and eventually, belief became certainty. Somewhere during these years, likely after months of searching, Riddle finally discovered the hidden entrance leading toward the Chamber of Secrets. The exact details remain uncertain, but the outcome changed Hogwarts forever. He spoke Parseltongue before concealed stone. Ancient magic responded. Pathways unopened for centuries shifted once more. The heir of Slytherin had returned. From that moment onward, catastrophe moved silently beneath the surface of ordinary school life. Students still attended breakfast beneath floating candles. They still hurried between lessons, carrying heavy books through crowded corridors. Snow still gathered across the grounds during winter mornings, while owls crossed grey skies above the towers. Yet below the castle, something ancient had awakened, and Tom Riddle, calm and smiling among his classmates, had already decided that Hogwarts itself would soon witness the return of Salazar Slytherin's monster. By the final months of Myrtle Warren's life, Hogwarts had become a place she moved through carefully, almost apologetically, as though trying not to take up space inside the enormous castle around her. Students who are lonely for long enough often begin arranging their lives around avoidance, avoiding crowded corridors between classes, avoiding eye contact at meals, avoiding conversations that might turn cruel without warning. Myrtle had reached that stage quietly over time. The confidence many children arrived with at 11 years old had slowly worn away beneath embarrassment and ridicule. By now, other students expected her to cry easily, and because they expected it, they watched for it constantly. Every visible reaction became entertainment. Olive Hornby, remained at the center of much of this cruelty. She had discovered long ago that Myrtle's emotions could be manipulated with very little effort. A mocking imitation of Myrtle's voice, a joke about her glasses, laughter shared loudly enough for nearby students to hear. Small things, but schools are often built from small cruelties repeated endlessly. Inside Hogwarts, humiliation spread quickly because privacy barely existed. Students slept beside one another, studied beside one another, ate beside one another. Even emotional breakdowns could become public events within minutes. The castle contained secret passages and hidden chambers, yet almost nowhere truly safe from attention. Myrtle increasingly escaped into solitude whenever she could. The second-floor girls' bathroom became less a convenience and more a sanctuary. The old sinks and cracked mirrors offered a kind of silence difficult to find elsewhere in the school. Water dripped steadily through ancient pipes, while footsteps echoed faintly from distant corridors outside. Locked inside a stall, Myrtle could cry without immediately becoming the center of someone else's laughter, at least for a little while. The bathroom itself already carried an old feeling during these years. Hogwarts bathrooms were not modern places in the Muggle sense. They felt woven directly into the ancient structure of the castle, all cold stone, echoing pipes, and dim light reflected against damp surfaces. Some taps sputtered unpredictably. Mirrors fogged easily beneath drifting steam. Strange drafts moved constantly through the room, as though the castle itself breathed somewhere inside the walls. Myrtle spent more and more time there as her isolation deepened. The tragedy was not simply that students bullied her. Many children endure cruelty and eventually recover. The deeper tragedy was that Myrtle slowly came to believe the things said about her. Shame settled inside her identity so completely that she expected rejection before it even arrived. She became nervous speaking aloud in classes, self-conscious walking through corridors, afraid of attracting notice. The more she withdrew emotionally, the easier it became for others to dismiss her entirely. Meanwhile, Hogwarts itself continued moving through its ancient routines, almost untouched by individual suffering. The castle did not slow for lonely students. Bells still echoed through corridors announcing lessons. Professors still assigned essays and practical examinations. Quidditch discussions still filled common rooms late into the evening. Spring approached gradually across the grounds. Rain swept over the black lake beneath low grey skies. The forbidden forest darkened beneath fresh leaves, while damp wind carried the smell of wet earth through open windows. Somewhere high in the owlery, hundreds of owls rustled restlessly during storms. Life at Hogwarts continued with the strange mixture of beauty and pressure that defined the school for generations. Yet beneath all of it, something ancient had begun moving again. Tom Riddle's discovery of the Chamber of Secrets changed the atmosphere of Hogwarts in subtle ways, long before any attack occurred. Though students could not yet explain the feeling, tension seemed to gather invisibly within the castle itself. Certain corridors felt colder. Strange sounds echoed faintly through walls late at night. Some students claimed they heard movement within the pipes overhead. Most dismissed these stories quickly. Hogwarts always sounded alive after dark. The castle creaked. Pipes groaned. Ghosts drifted through corridors muttering to themselves. Wind howled through cracks in ancient stone. Yet hidden among those ordinary sounds, the basilisk had awakened beneath the school for the first time in centuries. Tom Riddle controlled it carefully at first. He remained outwardly calm, admired, and disciplined, while secretly exploring powers no student his age should have possessed. The contrast between his public image and hidden actions became almost impossible to comprehend. Professors praised him, even while he moved through the castle, carrying one of the deadliest secrets in Hogwarts history, and Myrtle Warren unknowingly drifted closer toward him each day. There is a sadness to the ordinary details of Myrtle's final weeks, because she herself had no idea her life stood near its end. She still worried about homework, still dreaded humiliating encounters with classmates, still likely imagined future years at Hogwarts, despite how unhappy she had become there. Children rarely understand how suddenly life can change. Some evenings, she probably sat beside Ravenclaw windows, watching rain move across the grounds while other students talked around her. Perhaps she read quietly in corners of the library, trying to disappear between shelves of books. Perhaps she counted the days until summer holidays, simply because leaving Hogwarts meant temporary relief from constant embarrassment. Yet even home may not have fully comforted her. Muggle-born students often returned from Hogwarts, carrying emotional burdens their families could not entirely understand. How could non-magical parents truly grasp the strange social hierarchies and magical pressures shaping their children's lives? Myrtle may have struggled to explain why she dreaded returning to school, while simultaneously belonging nowhere else. At Hogwarts, she felt isolated. Outside Hogwarts, she remained different from everyone around her. The loneliness of existing between worlds can become unbearable for children. Olive Hornby seemed not to notice any of this. Bullies rarely understand the full emotional consequences of what they do, especially when surrounded by others laughing along. To Olive, mocking Myrtle likely became routine, almost casual. Another joke during class, another cruel comment in the corridor, another moment quickly forgotten. For Myrtle, however, these moments accumulated endlessly, and as emotional strain built inside her, the bathroom became increasingly important. It offered predictability, silence, isolation from judgment. Myrtle knew she could lock herself inside a stall and cry there without immediately facing a crowd. Unfortunately, Tom Riddle's plans were moving steadily toward the same location. The entrance to the Chamber of Secrets remained hidden behind one of the bathroom sinks. For centuries, students had washed their hands beside it without suspecting what lay below. Ancient magic concealed the truth perfectly. Only a Parselmouth speaking the correct command could open the pathway descending beneath Hogwarts. Riddle likely visited the bathroom repeatedly during these weeks while ensuring nobody noticed anything unusual. Timing mattered carefully. Prefects still patrolled corridors. Teachers moved unpredictably through the castle. Students constantly wandered between classes or sneaked through passages after curfew. Everything required precision. Riddle possessed that precision naturally. He understood schedules, patterns, blind spots within supervision. He knew when corridors emptied and when bathrooms remained abandoned. He controlled himself so completely that no outward sign betrayed what he was preparing beneath Hogwarts. The basilisk waited within darkness below the pipes, massive, ancient, deadly. Even imagining such a creature moving beneath a school seems almost impossible. Yet Hogwarts itself had always balanced beauty beside danger. Forbidden forests bordered school grounds. Dangerous magical plants filled greenhouses. Ghosts drifted through corridors beside children barely entering adolescence. The castle contained wonders and terrors intertwined so completely that students gradually accepted both as normal. Still, nothing in Hogwarts history truly prepared anyone for what was coming. As Myrtle's final weeks passed, her emotional world narrowed further and further. Humiliation dominated her thoughts. Fear of ridicule shaped her movements. Bathrooms, corners, and empty corridors became safer than people. No professor appears to have recognized the depth of her isolation. that failure carried terrible consequences. Adults within schools often noticed dramatic rule breaking more quickly than quiet suffering. Students who shout, fight, or rebel attract immediate attention. Students who cry alone inside bathrooms slowly become background sadness instead. Teachers grow accustomed to them. Classmates stop seeing them clearly. Myrtle Warren became invisible long before she died. And invisibility can become dangerous inside a castle carrying secrets beneath its foundations. Somewhere below Hogwarts, Tom Riddle prepared to unleash the monster of Salazar Slytherin against the school above. Somewhere within the corridors, Myrtle Warren searched only for a place where nobody would laugh at her for crying. Their paths were already moving toward one another through the ancient stone of Hogwarts. Neither of them could stop it now. The opening of the Chamber of Secrets did not happen with thunder or visible catastrophe. No alarms echoed through Hogwarts, no walls shattered. Students still hurried to lessons carrying books through crowded corridors, while candles drifted peacefully beneath the enchanted ceiling of the Great Hall. That was the frightening thing about it. The castle looked normal. Yet somewhere beneath the ancient foundations, Salazar Slytherin's monster had begun moving through the darkness once more. At first, nobody understood that anything had changed. The basilisk traveled silently through pipes hidden deep inside the walls of Hogwarts, invisible to nearly everyone above. Water hissed faintly through old plumbing systems while students studied, laughed, argued, and worried about examinations, completely unaware of the creature gliding beneath their feet. Tom Riddle controlled everything carefully. By day, he remained the perfect student. Professors continued praising his intelligence and discipline. Younger students admired him openly. Other prefects trusted him. Even during the weeks when the chamber reopened, nobody appears to have suspected him of anything remotely dangerous. That ability to appear ordinary while carrying terrible secrets became one of Riddle's most terrifying qualities. He moved calmly through the same corridors where fear would soon spread. The basilisk itself represented one of the oldest and deadliest magical creatures known to wizarding history, created through dark magic involving a chicken egg hatched beneath a toad. A basilisk could live for centuries if properly hidden. Its venom destroyed almost anything it touched. Worst of all were its eyes. Direct eye contact meant instant death. Salazar Slytherin had hidden such a creature beneath a school filled with children. Even centuries later, the reality feels almost impossible to comprehend. The chamber remained connected to Hogwarts through ancient plumbing systems constructed after the Founders' era. Somehow the hidden pathways adapted as the castle evolved across centuries. Pipes twisted invisibly through walls and beneath floors, allowing the basilisk movement throughout large sections of the school without revealing itself openly. Only Riddle could command it. Parcel mouths remained extraordinarily rare, and the creature responded solely to the language of serpents. Through whispered commands, spoken in hissing syllables no ordinary student could understand, Riddle guided the monster through darkness beneath Hogwarts. At first, strange details began unsettling students quietly. Whispers echoed through pipes late at night. Some students reported hearing movement inside walls. Others complained about an unusual coldness drifting through certain corridors. Most dismissed these things quickly, because Hogwarts had always seemed alive in strange ways. Ancient castles produced noises naturally. Water rushed endlessly through pipes. Ghosts wandered without warning. The school contained too many mysteries already for students to panic over every unusual sound. Yet tension slowly gathered anyway. Children sense fear in one another before adults notice it. Conversations inside common rooms shifted subtly. Students walked through corridors a little faster after dark. Younger children avoided wandering alone near empty parts of the castle. The atmosphere changed in ways difficult to explain directly. Meanwhile, Myrtle Warren remained trapped inside her own private unhappiness. Her suffering still revolved around ordinary humiliations, while a far greater danger approached invisibly around her. She worried about Olive Hornby mocking her again. She dreaded laughter during lessons. She sought quiet places to cry in peace. The terrible irony was that Myrtle's greatest concern remained embarrassment only days before her death. Tom Riddle likely understood this about people instinctively. Most individuals focus on immediate personal pain, even while catastrophe gathers nearby. Students still argued about homework and Quidditch, while the basilisk moved beneath Hogwarts, carrying death within its gaze. The first attacks seem to have begun cautiously. Canon never fully details every early movement of the monster during Myrtle's era, but fear spread quickly enough that rumors soon overwhelmed the school. Students whispered about something dangerous roaming Hogwarts. Teachers held tense private discussions. Patrols likely increased after curfew. Yet without understanding what they faced, nobody knew where to search. The castle itself became frightening in new ways. Long corridors, once merely gloomy, now seemed threatening after sunset. Water dripping through pipes sounded unnatural. Every dark reflection inside windows or suits of armor appeared suspicious for a moment. Students hurried through staircases in groups rather than alone. Rainy evenings felt especially oppressive. Storms swept across the Black Lake while thunder rolled through the mountains surrounding Hogwarts. Candle flames flickered against stone walls. Wind moaned through ancient cracks in the towers. Somewhere within the pipes, unseen movement continued beneath the sound of rushing water. Riddle watched the fear spreading with quiet satisfaction. For perhaps the first time in his life, he possessed proof of absolute control over life and death. The chamber obeyed him. The basilisk obeyed him. Hogwarts itself seemed vulnerable before him, despite its ancient power. And still nobody suspected the polite Ravenclaw prefect admired by teachers and students alike. There is something deeply unsettling about how ordinary Riddle appeared during this period. He still attended lessons, still completed assignments flawlessly, still spoke calmly with professors at dinner beneath the enchanted ceiling. Even while carrying the knowledge that he had awakened a legendary monster beneath the school, he maintained perfect composure. That emotional emptiness separated him from almost everyone else around him. Most students would have felt fear, or guilt, or hesitation. Riddle felt fascination. Meanwhile, Myrtle's emotional world continued narrowing inward. The bathroom on the second floor became almost an extension of herself by now. Students likely joked openly about finding Myrtle crying there whenever something upset her. Bathrooms had become associated with shame and retreat in her mind. Yet the bathroom also happened to conceal the entrance to the chamber itself. The ancient sink, hiding the passage, stood unnoticed beside countless ordinary taps. Students washed hands beside it for decades, without understanding what slept beneath the plumbing connected to those pipes. Such secrecy reflected Slytherin's brilliance. The chamber hid not behind dramatic magical barriers, but within something so ordinary that nobody questioned it. Riddle probably visited the bathroom more frequently during these final days, while ensuring no witnesses observed anything suspicious. Timing mattered carefully. Students moved unpredictably between classes. Girls entered and exited the bathroom constantly during daylight hours. Everything required patience. Myrtle herself may even have crossed paths with Riddle there without realizing it. Perhaps she saw him washing his hands calmly at the sinks before he disappeared again into the corridors. Perhaps she noticed nothing unusual at all. To Myrtle, Riddle belonged to a completely different social world from her own. Important students rarely paid attention to lonely girls crying inside bathroom stalls. The chamber continued opening beneath her feet regardless. Eventually, fear inside Hogwarts reached a level impossible to ignore. Stories spread faster now. Some students claimed they had seen movement near corridors after curfew. Others whispered about pets acting strangely or strange hissing sounds echoing through walls. Teachers began escorting younger students more carefully. Househeads likely warned prefects to monitor corridors closely. Yet no protective measure could stop a danger nobody truly understood. That was the terrifying advantage Riddle possessed. Hogwarts defended itself brilliantly against ordinary threats. Intruders could not simply enter the castle unseen. Professors monitored dangerous magic constantly. Ghosts reported unusual activity. Portraits observed corridors endlessly. But the Chamber of Secrets had been designed specifically to evade Hogwarts itself. The threat came from within the school's own foundations, and beneath all the growing fear, Myrtle Warren continued reaching the limits of her emotional endurance. Olive Hornby's bullying did not stop simply because the castle grew tense. Cruel children rarely pause their behavior during uncertain times. If anything, fear often sharpens cruelty, because frightened people seek easier targets for distraction. Myrtle cried more frequently during these weeks. Perhaps teachers noticed and assumed she simply frightened easily. Perhaps classmates rolled their eyes whenever she became upset again. By now, many students likely viewed her emotions as exhausting background behavior rather than genuine distress. Nobody realized how close she stood to becoming part of Hogwarts history forever. The final day approached quietly. Students still attended lessons. Rain still swept against windows overlooking the grounds. The Great Hall still filled with conversation beneath floating candles. And somewhere below the castle, the basilisk waited for its master's command, while Myrtle Warren unknowingly moved toward the bathroom that had become her final refuge. The day Myrtle Warren died began like countless other days at Hogwarts. Students woke beneath grey Scottish skies, while rain drifted softly against the castle windows. Fires crackled inside common room hearths. Owls crossed the morning air, carrying letters from home. Somewhere in the distance, the Black Lake moved restlessly beneath the wind. Nothing about the morning warned anyone that a child would not survive until evening. Lessons continued normally throughout the castle. Professors assigned essays. Cauldrons bubbled inside potions classrooms. Charmed students practiced wand movements while parchment rustled beneath drifting candlelight. The ancient routines of Hogwarts moved forward exactly as they had for centuries. Yet beneath those routines, tension remained everywhere now. The fear spreading through the school had become impossible to ignore completely. Students whispered constantly about the attacks and strange noises within the castle. Teachers monitored corridors more carefully. Younger children rarely traveled alone after dark anymore. Still, nobody truly understood the danger. No one imagined that death itself already moved silently through the pipes beneath the floors of Hogwarts. Myrtle spent much of that final day carrying the same quiet sadness that had followed her for years. Whatever small humiliations occurred during lessons or between classes likely felt enormous to her by now. Emotional exhaustion changes how people experience ordinary life. A careless laugh can sound crueler. A passing comment can linger painfully for hours. And somewhere during that day, Olive Hornby humiliated Myrtle once again. Canon preserves only fragments of the moment. Myrtle later explained that Olive had teased her about her glasses. Such a detail sounds painfully ordinary compared to the terrible events surrounding it. Not dark magic, not violence. Simply another schoolgirl mocking another child for something small. But cruelty rarely feels small to the person experiencing it. Myrtle fled to the second-floor girls' bathroom in tears, seeking the same privacy she had sought so many times before. The bathroom had become the closest thing she possessed to a sanctuary inside Hogwarts, a place where she could lock herself inside a stall and cry without immediately facing more laughter. The tragedy is that on this particular day, her refuge had already become the center of something ancient and deadly. Outside the bathroom, Hogwarts continued almost normally. Students hurried through corridors carrying books against their robes. Rain tapped softly against windows overlooking the grounds. Somewhere in the Great Hall, dishes clattered faintly as house elves prepared dinner beneath the kitchens. Meanwhile, Myrtle cried alone inside a bathroom stall. There is something deeply sad about the simplicity of her final moments before everything changed. Myrtle was not searching for adventure. She was not uncovering dark secrets or bravely investigating mysteries. She was simply a lonely child, hiding from humiliation. Tom Riddle approached the bathroom not long afterward. The exact sequence of events remains uncertain, but enough pieces survive through canon to understand the terrible shape of what happened. Riddle intended to open the chamber once more. The basilisk obeyed him completely by now. The hidden sink concealing the entrance stood waiting among the ordinary bathroom fixtures, while Myrtle unknowingly cried only feet away. At some point, Myrtle heard someone enter. She later remembered hearing a boy speaking strangely outside the stall door. The voice frightened or irritated her enough that she decided to leave the bathroom and tell him to go away. Myrtle did not understand she was hearing parcel tongue, the language of serpents. To her, it sounded merely odd and unfamiliar. That moment became the final crossing point between two entirely different tragedies. Tom Riddle stood beside the hidden entrance, speaking ancient commands into the darkness below. Myrtle Warren, eyes swollen from crying, pushed open the stall door, intending only to complain about a boy entering the girls' bathroom. She saw yellow eyes. That was all. Canon preserves the moment with terrible simplicity. Myrtle later described seeing a pair of enormous yellow eyes before dying instantly. The basilisk's gaze killed her immediately. The moment direct eye contact occurred, there was no time for understanding, no time for fear, no time even to fully realize what she had seen. 1 second, Myrtle Warren stood alive inside the bathroom, upset over cruel laughter and childish humiliation. The next second, she became the first student killed by the monster of Salazar Slytherin in centuries. The silence afterward must have felt unnatural. Rain still drifted against the castle windows outside. Water still moved through the ancient pipes overhead. Somewhere distant inside Hogwarts, students continued ordinary conversations, completely unaware that death had just entered the school itself. Tom Riddle now faced the reality of what he had done. Yet if he felt horror, he concealed it immediately. That emotional emptiness remained perhaps the most frightening part of his character. Most students witnessing such a death would have panicked. They would have run for help or collapsed beneath fear and guilt. Riddle instead began thinking strategically almost at once. The chamber had truly opened. The monster obeyed him, and now Hogwarts stood vulnerable before him in ways no one else understood. Myrtle's body was discovered not long afterward. The details remain unclear, but the shock that spread through Hogwarts must have been immense. Students were accustomed to danger in magical education. Accidents occurred. Broken bones happened regularly during Quidditch or practical lessons. But a student dying mysteriously inside the castle itself felt entirely different. Fear moved rapidly through the school. Teachers likely rushed students back toward their common rooms, while frantic discussions erupted among the staff. The second-floor bathroom transformed instantly from an ordinary part of Hogwarts into the scene of a terrible mystery. Students whispered about what had happened before anyone possessed real answers. The atmosphere inside the castle changed completely after Myrtle's death. The corridors no longer merely felt tense, they felt haunted. Children who previously laughed at rumors about the Chamber of Secrets now spoke about it in frightened whispers. Parents began sending anxious letters by owl. Professors searched desperately for explanations, while trying to prevent panic from overwhelming the school entirely. And through all of it, Tom Riddle remained outwardly calm. That calmness likely reassured many people around him. In moments of fear, students and adults alike often trust whoever appears composed and intelligent. Riddle understood this instinct perfectly. He continued presenting himself as responsible, helpful, and concerned for the safety of the school. Meanwhile, Myrtle Warren's life had already begun shrinking into rumor and tragedy. Children rarely become individuals after dying young, inside institutions like Hogwarts. Instead, they transform into symbols, stories, warnings. Students spoke about the dead girl from the bathroom more than Myrtle herself. Fear replaced understanding almost immediately. Yet behind the rumors remained a lonely child whose final hours had revolved not around magical war or ancient prophecy, but around ordinary sadness and bullying. That truth gives the tragedy its deepest weight. Myrtle died because a monster opened its eyes before her, but she also died inside a bathroom where she had hidden countless times from ridicule nobody else took seriously enough. The second-floor bathroom itself changed after her death. Places absorb emotional meaning after tragedy. Students entering the room afterward likely spoke more quietly, without understanding why. Water dripping from taps sounded different there now. Mirrors reflected frightened faces beneath dim light, while every pipe overhead suddenly carried terrifying possibilities. The bathroom became associated forever with fear and death, yet even greater consequences had already begun unfolding beyond it. Tom Riddle now possessed proof that he could kill. The chamber had given him more than power. It had given him certainty. The monster obeyed him completely, and Hogwarts itself had failed to stop it. Somewhere within the darkness of his mind, another boundary had disappeared forever. At the same time, the school itself stood near collapse. A student had died mysteriously inside the castle. Parents would demand answers. Governors would pressure the headmaster. Rumors about the Chamber of Secrets threatened the reputation and safety of Hogwarts itself. The ancient school had survived wars, political conflict, and centuries of magical danger. But now, fear spread through its corridors in a new way, because the threat came from within the castle itself. And somewhere beyond death, Myrtle Warren had not yet fully left Hogwarts behind. The death of Myrtle Warren shattered whatever fragile sense of safety Hogwarts had managed to preserve during those uneasy years. Fear spread through the castle more quickly than any owl could carry news beyond its walls. Students whispered in corners of common rooms late into the night. Parents sent frantic letters demanding explanations. Even professors moved through the corridors with visible tension beneath their composed expressions. For the first time in centuries, Hogwarts faced the possibility that the school itself might close. The ancient castle had always contained danger. Students accepted that as part of magical education. Staircases moved unpredictably. Forbidden forests bordered the grounds. Potions exploded. Quidditch injuries filled the hospital wing, regularly. But murder was different, especially the murder of a child inside the school itself. Headmaster Armando Dippet now faced enormous pressure from every direction. Governors demanded answers. The ministry expected swift action. Terrified families questioned whether Hogwarts could still protect their children. Rumors about the Chamber of Secrets spread rapidly, despite staff attempts to contain them. And somewhere beneath all that fear, Tom Riddle quietly began shaping the next phase of his plan. Riddle understood something essential about frightened institutions. Fear creates desperation, and desperate people often accept simple explanations because they need uncertainty to end quickly. Hogwarts no longer wanted merely to understand what had happened to Myrtle Warren. The school needed someone to blame. That need would destroy Rubeus Hagrid's life. Hagrid during these years was still a student, though already physically enormous compared to most of his classmates. Even as a teenager, he carried the awkward gentleness that later generations would recognize instantly. He loved magical creatures with a sincerity many people misunderstood. While other students feared dangerous beasts instinctively, Hagrid approached them with fascination and empathy. Unfortunately, fascination with dangerous creatures often looked suspicious to others, especially during a time of fear. Hagrid had acquired an acromantula while attending Hogwarts, secretly raising the creature inside the castle. The spider, later known as Aragog, remained only a juvenile during these years, hidden carefully within the school by Hagrid's misguided affection. To Hagrid, Aragog represented companionship and wonder. To almost anyone else, the creature appeared horrifying. Acromantulas were enormous magical spiders capable of human speech and deadly violence once fully grown. Keeping one inside a school filled with children was extraordinarily reckless. Yet Hagrid's actions came from kindness rather than cruelty. That difference mattered enormously, though fear would eventually erase it almost completely. Tom Riddle recognized opportunity immediately. The moment Myrtle died, Riddle understood he needed to protect himself before suspicion reached the Chamber of Secrets. Even with his intelligence and charm, continuing attacks would eventually provoke deeper investigation. He required a believable alternative explanation, something frightening enough to satisfy the school while diverting attention away from himself permanently. Hagrid and Aragog provided exactly that. The brilliance of Riddle's manipulation lay partly in how plausible it appeared. Students already knew Hagrid loved unusual creatures. Some likely found him strange or intimidating because of his massive size and fascination with dangerous beasts. An acromantula hidden inside Hogwarts sounded terrifying enough to explain Myrtle's death to frightened people desperate for answers. Fear often values simplicity over truth. Riddle approached the situation carefully. Publicly, he presented himself as deeply concerned about the attacks and the safety of the school. He likely spoke sympathetically with professors, while quietly directing suspicion toward Hagrid behind the scenes. Other students trusted him instinctively by now. Adults trusted him even more. That trust made him extraordinarily dangerous. Meanwhile, Hagrid probably understood almost nothing about the larger forces moving around him. He remained focused primarily on protecting Aragog from discovery. The spider itself feared humans deeply, despite its growing size and intelligence. Hagrid fed and hid the creature secretly, believing he could eventually release it safely somewhere beyond the castle grounds. He never imagined someone would accuse Aragog of murder. Yet from the perspective of frightened adults inside Hogwarts, the accusation sounded convincing enough. A giant hidden spider discovered inside the castle shortly after a student died mysteriously. The coincidence alone terrified people already searching desperately for explanations. Riddle ensured the pieces aligned perfectly. Canon later reveals that Riddle personally led authorities toward Hagrid. Whether he manipulated evidence directly or simply guided suspicion carefully, the outcome remained devastating. Professors discovered Aragog hidden inside the school, while fear regarding Myrtle's death still dominated every conversation within Hogwarts. The castle itself during these days must have felt suffocating. Students rarely traveled alone anymore. Professors likely escorted groups between classes. Conversations stopped abruptly whenever teachers approached. Rainy weather settled heavily over the grounds, while tension thickened inside stone corridors lit by flickering torchlight. And through all of it, Myrtle Warren's death slowly transformed from tragedy into investigation. That transformation carried its own sadness. Children who die inside institutions often become absorbed into systems larger than themselves. Myrtle increasingly became the girl who was killed, rather than a lonely Ravenclaw student who cried inside bathrooms because classmates mocked her. Fear replaced empathy. The need for answers overwhelmed quieter grief. When authorities confronted Hagrid, the scene must have been terrifying for him. Though physically large, Hagrid remained emotionally young and deeply trusting. He likely tried explaining that Aragog had never harmed anyone. The Acromantula itself later insisted innocence clearly when speaking with Harry Potter decades afterward. Aragog could not kill with a deadly gaze, because Acromantulas possess entirely different methods of hunting. But logic rarely defeats panic once fear takes hold. The Ministry and Hogwarts staff needed immediate resolution. Parents demanded reassurance. Governors pressured the headmaster relentlessly. Every day without answers threatened the future of the school itself. Riddle understood this perfectly. By presenting Hagrid as the culprit, he offered Hogwarts something emotionally comforting, even if it was false. The monster had been found. The danger had been identified. Action could finally be taken. So Hogwarts chose certainty over truth. Hagrid was expelled from the school. The punishment carried enormous consequences beyond ordinary discipline. Expulsion from Hogwarts effectively destroyed most magical careers before they even began. Worse still, Hagrid's wand was snapped, symbolically ending his formal, magical education forever. For a wizard, wand destruction represented something close to social death. The injustice of it remains painful, because Hagrid himself possessed many of the same qualities Myrtle lacked protection from. Like Myrtle, he was vulnerable in ways the institution failed to understand properly. His size and unusual interests made him an outsider despite his kindness. And like Myrtle, adults around him failed to see the deeper truth beneath appearances. Riddle manipulated both of them differently. Myrtle became collateral damage. Hagrid became the scapegoat. Aragog escaped into the Forbidden Forest during the chaos surrounding Hagrid's expulsion. Hagrid managed to release the young Acromantula before authorities could destroy it. Deep within the forest, Aragog would survive and eventually establish the colony encountered decades later by Harry Potter and Ron Weasley. The Forbidden Forest itself became even more frightening afterward. Students already viewed it with superstition and fear. Now rumors spread connecting giant spiders, hidden monsters, and the murder of a student beneath the shadowed trees beyond the castle grounds. The forest seemed less like wilderness and more like something actively hostile waiting beside Hogwarts. Yet despite Hagrid's punishment, something remained unresolved beneath the surface of events. The attacks stopped. That fact reassured many people immediately. If the danger had vanished after Hagrid's expulsion, then surely the school had found the correct culprit. Fear gradually loosened its grip on Hogwarts. Students returned more fully to ordinary routines. Conversations shifted slowly away from death and monsters. But Tom Riddle understood the deeper truth. The Chamber of Secrets remained hidden. The basilisk still slept beneath the castle, and Hogwarts had completely failed to uncover either one. That realization must have filled Riddle with enormous satisfaction. He had manipulated an entire institution while still a teenager. Professors admired him. Authorities trusted him. Even after murder, suspicion had moved cleanly towards someone else entirely. It confirmed what he increasingly believed about himself. He was smarter than everyone around him, more dangerous, more deserving of power. Meanwhile, Hagrid left Hogwarts carrying confusion and grief that would shape the rest of his life. Though Dumbledore later ensured he remained employed at the school as gamekeeper in training, the emotional wound never fully disappeared. Hagrid always spoke of Hogwarts with love, yet beneath that love remained the memory of betrayal and loss. And somewhere above all of it, Myrtle Warren herself had already begun slipping strangely between death and whatever came after. Death inside the wizarding world did not always mean disappearance. Hogwarts itself carried reminders of that truth everywhere. Ghosts drifted through corridors between classes as naturally as professors or students. The Fat Friar smiled warmly from Hufflepuff tables during meals. Nearly headless Nick floated through Gryffindor Tower, lamenting the incompleteness of his execution. The Bloody Baron moved silently through Slytherin House, wrapped in chains and old regret. To Hogwarts students, ghosts eventually became ordinary. But every ghost represented a witch or wizard who had once faced a choice after death. Most moved onward into whatever existed beyond life. Ghosts themselves admitted they knew almost nothing about that mystery because they had chosen not to continue toward it. Instead, they remained behind as pale imprints of human beings, shaped by fear, unfinished emotion, or refusal to let go. Myrtle Warren became one of them. The transformation seems to have happened almost immediately after her death. Myrtle later described leaving her body and discovering herself floating above the bathroom where she had died. Confusion likely overwhelmed her at first. She remained emotionally young, frightened, and deeply attached to the unhappiness that had defined her final years at Hogwarts. And unlike many adult witches and wizards who became ghosts after long lives filled with experience, Myrtle died as a child. That difference mattered enormously. Ghosts already exist in a strange emotional state, unable to fully grow or change after death. For Myrtle, this meant her insecurities, embarrassment, and loneliness remained frozen permanently at the emotional intensity of adolescence. She did not become wiser after death. She simply became eternal. The second-floor bathroom became tied to her immediately. Places of trauma often hold emotional power, even in the non-magical world. At Hogwarts, where centuries of magic soaked into the very stones, such connections grew even stronger. Myrtle died inside the bathroom, frightened and upset, and some part of her remained anchored there afterward. At first, she likely did not fully understand what had happened to her. Ghosts occupy a strange existence between memory and reality. They can see the living world, but never fully participate in it again. They hear conversations, but cannot truly rejoin ordinary life. They remain visible reminders of death, moving through spaces still filled with living people. For Myrtle, the transition must have felt unbearable. One moment, she existed as a lonely student crying inside a bathroom stall. The next moment, she watched professors, prefects, and frightened students gathering around her body, while nobody could truly see or comfort her. And unlike older ghosts, who perhaps accepted death gradually, Myrtle entered ghosthood carrying fresh humiliation and emotional pain directly from her final moments alive. The result shaped everything she later became. There is a sadness to Hogwarts ghosts often overlooked by students, because the castle normalized them so completely. Children laughed with nearly headless Nick. Peeves tormented everyone equally regardless of mortality. Ghosts drifted beside dinner tables, while candles floated overhead, as though death itself had become part of ordinary school decoration. Yet ghosts remained deeply tragic beings. They stayed behind because they feared leaving, or because something bound them emotionally to the world they lost. In Myrtle's case, that emotional bond seems rooted partly in misery itself. She had never felt truly accepted while alive. Death did not suddenly provide peace or understanding. Instead, it trapped her forever within the emotional world of a hurt adolescent girl. And almost immediately after becoming a ghost, Myrtle sought revenge against Olive Hornby. This detail reveals how little emotional distance existed between Myrtle's life and afterlife. Rather than moving calmly into ghosthood, she carried her humiliation with her like an open wound. Olive's cruelty had shaped Myrtle's final years so deeply that death itself did not erase the anger and sadness surrounding it. Myrtle began haunting Olive relentlessly. She followed her former classmate beyond Hogwarts, appearing unexpectedly and causing constant distress. Imagine Olive Hornby afterward, still a child herself, suddenly pursued by the ghost of the girl whose suffering she had helped create. Myrtle appeared in mirrors, hovered near windows, and interrupted Olive's daily life with grief and fury. It was not justice exactly, more like pain, refusing to disappear. Eventually, the Ministry intervened after Olive filed formal complaints regarding Myrtle's haunting. Even in the wizarding world, ghosts could not simply terrorize the living indefinitely. Myrtle received orders restricting her movement, effectively forcing her return to Hogwarts. So she came back to the castle, back to the bathroom, back to the place where her life ended. That return defined the rest of her existence. The second-floor bathroom gradually transformed into Myrtle's permanent territory. Students began avoiding it whenever possible, because nobody enjoyed encountering a ghost who spent most of her time crying, sulking, or flooding sinks dramatically during emotional outbursts. Over time, the bathroom fell increasingly abandoned, except by desperate students or those unfamiliar with its reputation. Myrtle's haunting changed the atmosphere of the room completely. Ghosts influence environments emotionally as much as physically. The bathroom became associated not merely with death, but with sadness itself. Mirrors fogged beside dripping taps, while Myrtle drifted between stalls reliving old grievances endlessly. Students entering the room often encountered sobbing before they saw her directly, and Myrtle never truly moved beyond the emotions of her death. That emotional stagnation perhaps explains why she later behaved in ways students found strange or uncomfortable. Myrtle desperately wanted attention, because attention had been painfully absent during her life. Even negative interactions sometimes satisfied that need briefly. She interrupted conversations, invaded privacy, and exaggerated emotional reactions, partly because invisibility frightened her more than embarrassment ever again could. Loneliness followed her into death. Meanwhile, Hogwarts itself slowly attempted returning to normal after the crisis surrounding Myrtle's murder. Hagrid's expulsion reassured many frightened parents. The attack stopped completely once Riddle closed the chamber again. Teachers encouraged students to focus on lessons and examinations, rather than rumors about monsters beneath the castle. Yet the castle never fully forgot. The bathroom where Myrtle died remained physically ordinary, but emotionally altered forever. Students whispered about it during late-night conversations. Younger children dared one another to enter alone. Stories about Myrtle herself slowly grew exaggerated through generations. Some students pitied her, others mocked her, most simply avoided her. Tom Riddle, meanwhile, continued moving toward even darker ambitions. Myrtle's death became more than murder in his mind. It became proof of concept, a demonstration that killing could serve power and immortality rather than merely violence. Canon later reveals that Myrtle's death allowed Riddle to create his first Horcrux, using the diary that would one day reach Ginny Weasley decades later. That fact deepens the tragedy enormously. Myrtle Warren did not simply die during the opening of the Chamber of Secrets. Her death became the foundation stone for Voldemort's immortality. The lonely girl crying inside a bathroom unknowingly became tied forever to one of the darkest magical transformations in wizarding history. Yet inside Hogwarts, Myrtle herself remained trapped in much smaller emotions. She thought about Olive Hornby, about humiliation, about crying, about being mocked. Ghosts often seem diminished compared to the people they once were, because they cannot fully evolve emotionally after death. Myrtle's world became narrow and repetitive. She replayed old hurts constantly. She drifted through the bathroom, speaking about herself and her suffering, because those emotions remained frozen permanently inside her. And time moved differently around ghosts. Years passed across Hogwarts, while Myrtle remained unchanged. New students arrived each September, wearing freshly fitted robes and nervous expressions. Others graduated and disappeared into adult lives beyond the castle walls. Wars approached, ministries changed. Entire generations moved through the school. Myrtle stayed. Rain still tapped against the windows above the Black Lake. Candles still floated through the Great Hall. The castle still breathed softly through ancient pipes beneath stone corridors. And inside the second-floor bathroom, the ghost of a lonely girl remained crying beside cracked mirrors while life continued everywhere around her. Perhaps that is the saddest part of Myrtle's story. Not simply that she died young, but that emotionally she never truly left that moment behind. As the years passed, the memory of Myrtle Warren slowly faded from Hogwarts in the way many tragedies eventually do. Students graduated, professors retired. New classes arrived each autumn, crossing the Black Lake beneath candlelit skies, carrying fresh excitement and fear toward the castle towers rising above the cliffs. But Myrtle herself remained exactly where she had always been. Ghosts do not experience time like the living. For students, Hogwarts lasted only 7 years before adulthood carried them elsewhere. Friendships changed, faces aged. Entire historical eras shifted beyond the castle walls. Yet Myrtle drifted endlessly through the same bathroom where she had died as a teenager, emotionally preserved within the sadness of that moment forever. At first, students likely treated her with a mixture of pity and curiosity. Children newly arriving at Hogwarts often found ghosts fascinating. First years whispered excitedly after seeing nearly headless Nick float through a wall, or the Grey Lady glide silently across Ravenclaw Tower. Even the Bloody Baron inspired fearful awe among younger students. Myrtle was different. She cried too much, complained too often, flooded the bathroom dramatically whenever upset. Over time, fascination turned into avoidance. The second-floor girls' bathroom gradually became one of the least used rooms inside Hogwarts Castle. Students preferred walking farther to reach cleaner, quieter bathrooms, rather than risk encountering Myrtle during one of her emotional outbursts. Word spread quickly between generations of students. Girls warned younger classmates about the crying ghost haunting the bathroom sinks. The room itself slowly changed because of that reputation. Unused spaces inside ancient buildings developed strange atmospheres over time. dust gathered more easily. Mirrors fogged beneath lingering dampness. The sound of dripping water echoed louder without ordinary conversation to soften it. Myrtle drifted endlessly between cracked stalls and old sinks while cold drafts moved beneath the doors. Sometimes she sat beneath the windows, staring out toward the grey Scottish sky beyond the castle grounds. Other times she hid inside toilet pipes simply because she could. Ghosts at Hogwarts possess strange abilities connected to the objects and locations surrounding their deaths. Myrtle learned to travel through plumbing systems, appearing suddenly from sinks or toilets whenever emotion overwhelmed her. Students found this horrifying or disgusting, depending on the situation. Yet beneath the comedy of it remained terrible loneliness. Myrtle's emotional world had narrowed almost completely now. Without the forward movement of ordinary life, ghosts often become trapped within repetitive habits and memories. Myrtle replayed old humiliations endlessly because no new experiences truly replaced them. She spoke constantly about her suffering because emotionally she still remained the unhappy Ravenclaw girl, mocked for crying inside bathrooms. And year after year, students continued mocking her anyway. The cruelty changed form after her death, but never fully disappeared. Living children laughed at her dramatic sobbing. They rolled their eyes when she complained. Some students deliberately provoked her for amusement because flooding bathrooms or emotional screaming created entertaining chaos during otherwise ordinary school days. Myrtle had become comic relief inside the castle where she once suffered alone as a child. That transformation carried its own sadness. People often grow less compassionate toward pain when it becomes familiar. Students encountering Myrtle repeatedly stopped seeing tragedy and began seeing inconvenience instead. She interrupted prefects' baths. She wailed loudly during lessons near the bathroom corridor. She appeared suddenly from toilets, making younger students shriek in alarm. The ghost became easier to laugh at than understand. Even the professors likely treated her more as an unfortunate nuisance than a lingering reminder of murder within Hogwarts itself. Myrtle represented an uncomfortable memory for the school. Her continued presence quietly exposed the truth that Hogwarts had failed to protect one of its students and never fully solved the crime surrounding her death. So the castle gradually folded her into ordinary routine instead. Ghosts made Hogwarts feel ancient and magical. Myrtle simply became one more ghost drifting through the corridors. Outside the bathroom, decades continued passing. The world changed enormously after Myrtle's death. Grindelwald fell. Albus Dumbledore became legendary after defeating him. Tom Riddle disappeared into darker corners of magical history before eventually returning as Lord Voldemort. Entire wars rose and fell beyond the castle walls. Myrtle watched fragments of these changes without truly participating in them. Students discussed major historical events inside the bathroom while fixing robes before lessons. Teachers carried whispered conversations through nearby corridors. Newspapers left behind occasionally mentioned names Myrtle remembered from her school years. Tom Riddle's name especially. One wonders whether Myrtle ever realized fully who he became. Perhaps she heard students discussing Voldemort decades later, without understanding immediately that the feared dark wizard had once been the calm, handsome prefect, standing outside her bathroom, speaking in strange, hissing words. Or perhaps ghosts perceive connections differently from the living, slowly piecing together truths through years of overheard conversation. Either way, Myrtle herself remained emotionally fixed, long before Voldemort's rise reached its height. That inability to grow became increasingly painful across the decades. Living people heal partly because time reshapes emotional wounds. New experiences arrive, Friendships form. Pain fades slowly beneath ordinary life continuing forward. Ghosts possess no such escape. Myrtle remained permanently adolescent. Permanent embarrassment, permanent loneliness, permanent resentment. Sometimes she likely watched students laughing together in corridors outside the bathroom and remembered painfully that she once belonged to their world. Not happily, perhaps, but physically. She once attended lessons, worried about exams, ate meals beneath floating candles, and slept inside Ravenclaw Tower beneath moonlit windows. Now she drifted unseen beside all those routines forever separated from them. The second-floor bathroom itself became almost a physical extension of Myrtle's emotional state. Dampness lingered constantly there. Water overflowed unpredictably whenever Myrtle became upset. The lighting always seemed dimmer somehow compared to other bathrooms inside the castle. Students entering alone often felt watched immediately. Some claimed the room felt colder than surrounding corridors. Others described hearing faint crying before Myrtle appeared. The bathroom became one of those strange Hogwarts spaces where emotional history soaked directly into the atmosphere itself. And still, the entrance to the Chamber of Secrets remained hidden beneath the sinks all the while. That fact deepened the tragedy enormously. Generations of students avoided the bathroom because of Myrtle. Without realizing, the room concealed one of the most dangerous secrets in wizarding history. The hidden sink rested silently beside ordinary taps, while Myrtle floated through the room above it for decades, never understanding fully what slept beneath her. The basilisk remained there still, dormant, waiting. Tom Riddle's careful concealment had succeeded completely. Hogwarts never reopened the investigation deeply after Hagrid's expulsion, because fear demanded resolution more urgently than truth. Myrtle's bathroom transformed into a ghost story instead of a crime scene. Meanwhile, Myrtle herself adapted strangely to endless solitude. Lonely people often begin craving attention, even when the attention feels uncomfortable or negative. Myrtle interrupted conversations constantly because being ignored frightened her more deeply than annoyance. She eavesdropped shamelessly. She invaded private spaces. She exaggerated emotional reactions, partly because intense emotion guaranteed someone would finally acknowledge her presence. Students found this behavior irritating or bizarre, yet viewed more sadly, it reflected a child desperately trying not to disappear completely. The older ghosts at Hogwarts likely understood this better than living students did. Nearly Headless Nick, the Grey Lady, and the Fat Friar all carried their own forms of unresolved sorrow beneath their ghostly routines. Hogwarts ghosts existed as reminders that fear of death sometimes created a fate lonelier than death itself. But Myrtle's ghosthood carried unique isolation even among them. The Grey Lady wandered Ravenclaw Tower with quiet dignity. Nearly Headless Nick belonged socially within Gryffindor house traditions. The Fat Friar remained warmly welcomed by Hufflepuffs. Myrtle belonged nowhere except the bathroom. She was too emotional for the other ghosts, too awkward for the living, too trapped in her own grief to form meaningful connection with anyone around her. Decade after decade passed while she repeated the same complaints, relived the same humiliations, and cried beside the same sinks beneath dripping pipes. The castle continued changing around her. Portraits were replaced. Professors aged. Students arrived wearing slightly different fashions with each generation. Yet Myrtle Warren remained emotionally unchanged beneath all of it, floating through damp air inside the abandoned bathroom where her life had ended. And somewhere far beyond Hogwarts, the boy responsible for her death was becoming something far more terrible than anyone at the school had ever imagined. As the decades passed through Hogwarts, Myrtle Warren became something strange within the life of the castle. She was not respected like the older ghosts, nor feared like the Bloody Baron, nor warmly welcomed like the Fat Friar. Instead, she occupied an awkward space between annoyance and pity, drifting through the second-floor bathroom while generations of students learned to avoid her whenever possible. Yet despite her constant complaints about loneliness, Myrtle remained deeply fascinated by people, especially people who noticed her. That fascination shaped nearly every relationship she formed after death. Ghosts at Hogwarts existed in a peculiar social world separate from the living. They attended Death Day parties, drifted through walls together, and carried centuries of shared memory. But Myrtle never fit comfortably among them either. Older ghosts often treated her with exhausted tolerance because her emotions overwhelmed nearly every interaction. She cried loudly, interrupted conversations, complained endlessly about how unfairly she had been treated. The other ghosts understood suffering well enough, but Myrtle's grief remained raw even after decades. She spoke less like someone remembering pain and more like someone still actively living inside it. As a result, she spent much of her existence focused on the living students moving through Hogwarts instead. Students fascinated her partly because they represented everything she lost. They hurried between classes, carrying books and gossip. They worried about examinations and Quidditch matches. They formed friendships beside fireplaces late at night inside common rooms. Myrtle watched all of it from the outside forever. Sometimes she attempted conversation awkwardly when students entered her bathroom alone. Younger children often reacted with alarm the first time a pale ghost rose suddenly from a toilet or drifted silently through a stall door. Myrtle occasionally enjoyed startling them because fear at least guaranteed attention. Attention mattered enormously to her now. Loneliness can twist emotional needs into strange shapes over time. Myrtle no longer understood healthy boundaries particularly well, because decades of isolation had warped her relationship with ordinary human interaction. She hovered too close during conversations. She listened secretly to private discussions. She inserted herself into moments where nobody had invited her. Yet beneath the awkwardness remained genuine desperation for connection. Some students responded with cruelty, much like Olive Hornby once had. Teenagers especially found Myrtle easy to mock because she reacted dramatically to almost everything. A sarcastic comment or dismissive laugh could send her spiraling into loud sobbing fits that echoed through the bathroom pipes. Other students simply ignored her whenever possible. Indifference wounded Myrtle almost as deeply as mockery. There is something painful about how closely her afterlife mirrored her life at Hogwarts. Even as a ghost, she remained trapped within the same emotional patterns. She wanted companionship, but struggled to create it. She longed to be understood, but pushed people away through intensity and bitterness. The wounds of adolescence remained permanently open inside her. Over the years, Myrtle developed strange attachments to certain students who treated her with even the smallest amount of kindness. A polite greeting, a conversation lasting more than a few moments, someone listening without immediately laughing. Such things became emotionally enormous to her because they happened so rarely. The prefect's bathroom occasionally drew Myrtle's attention for similar reasons. Unlike her abandoned second-floor bathroom, the prefect's bathroom represented luxury, warmth, and social importance inside Hogwarts. Huge marble baths filled with colored bubbles stood beneath glittering candlelight, while prefects and Quidditch captains relaxed there privately. Myrtle sometimes hid within the plumbing, connected to the room simply because it allowed her to observe students living the kind of confident social lives she never experienced herself. To the living students, this behavior seemed invasive and uncomfortable. To Myrtle, it probably felt like participating in Hogwarts life again however she could. The passage of time inside the castle only deepened these strange habits. Entire generations came and went while Myrtle remained unchanged. Students she once frightened eventually became parents, sending their own children to Hogwarts years later. Some perhaps remembered her with amusement while shopping for school supplies in Diagon Alley. The ghost in the bathroom still cries all the time. Myrtle herself stayed emotionally frozen beneath all those passing years. There is a particular sadness to imagining her witnessing the changing eras of magical Britain without truly belonging to any of them. She drifted through Hogwarts during Voldemort's first rise to power. She likely overheard frightened conversations among students whose families vanished during the war. Perhaps she watched professors whispering anxiously about disappearances and dark marks appearing across the country. Yet history always passed around her rather than through her. Even major events rarely changed her daily existence. She remained inside the bathroom, floating between sinks while rain tapped against castle windows overhead. Her world stayed small despite everything happening beyond it. Occasionally, students attempted showing kindness toward her. Some Ravenclaws, especially, may have felt sympathy because Myrtle had once belonged to their house. A few students perhaps listened patiently to her complaints or tried engaging her in conversation during lonely evenings. But Myrtle's emotional instability made sustained friendship difficult. She demanded attention intensely once someone showed interest, then reacted dramatically if she felt ignored again. Children and teenagers rarely possess the emotional maturity needed to navigate that kind of relationship comfortably, especially with a ghost carrying decades of unresolved pain. The castle itself adapted around Myrtle gradually. Peeves learned how easily he could provoke her and frequently tormented her for entertainment. Certain professors avoided assigning students to use the second-floor bathroom whenever alternatives existed. House elves quietly repaired water damage after Myrtle flooded sinks during emotional outbursts. Hogwarts absorbed her sadness into its ordinary rhythms. That perhaps represented the strangest thing about the castle. Hogwarts normalized almost everything, eventually. Ghosts, moving staircases, dangerous forests, cursed objects, even lingering tragedy, all became woven naturally into daily life over time. And Myrtle herself slowly transformed from a murdered child into part of Hogwarts' atmosphere. Students rarely stopped to consider what her existence actually meant. Few reflected on the horror of a girl remaining trapped emotionally inside the place where she died. Instead, Myrtle became another strange feature of the school, like the trick stairs or talking portraits. Yet moments of vulnerability still occasionally broke through her defensive behavior. Sometimes students entering the bathroom unexpectedly found Myrtle quieter than usual, drifting near the windows while staring out toward the grey hills surrounding Hogwarts. During storms, she sometimes spoke softly about feeling lonely or forgotten, before embarrassment quickly transformed the moment back into complaint and drama. Ghosts cannot truly heal because healing requires time moving emotionally forward. Myrtle remained suspended between memory and repetition. The other Hogwarts ghosts seemed to understand this instinctively, even when they found her difficult. Nearly Headless Nick, especially, likely recognized the deeper tragedy beneath her behavior. He himself understood what it meant to exist forever, slightly disconnected from both the living and the dead. Yet even among ghosts, Myrtle remained unusually isolated, and still she listened constantly to the lives unfolding around her. She overheard gossip about romances and rivalries through bathroom stalls. She learned secrets accidentally while drifting unnoticed through plumbing. Students often forgot ghosts could hear them because Hogwarts ghosts became such familiar background figures over time. Myrtle treasured these fragments of ordinary life. Even overheard arguments or embarrassing conversations reminded her she remained near living people rather than completely abandoned. But proximity is not the same thing as belonging. That truth defined her existence more deeply than anything else. Then eventually, decades after her death, another lonely student would enter Myrtle's bathroom carrying pain and isolation of his own. And for the first time in many years, Myrtle Warren would find herself drawn once more into the center of Hogwarts history. By the time Harry Potter arrived at Hogwarts, Myrtle Warren had already haunted the second-floor bathroom for roughly 50 years. Entire generations of students had passed through the castle during that time. Wars had begun and ended. Professors had grown old beneath enchanted ceilings and floating candles. Yet Myrtle herself remained emotionally unchanged, drifting through the same damp room where she had died as a frightened teenager. Most students still treated her as little more than an unpleasant curiosity. They avoided her bathroom whenever possible. They laughed about her dramatic sobbing during meals. Some younger students even dared one another to enter the bathroom alone, simply to hear the ghost complain or cry. Then Harry Potter spoke to her differently, not perfectly, not even comfortably at first, but differently enough that Myrtle noticed immediately. Harry himself understood loneliness better than many students his age. Though famous throughout the wizarding world, he spent much of his childhood isolated, misunderstood, or treated as strange. He knew what it felt like to stand outside ordinary happiness, watching other people belong naturally to places where he remained uncertain. That similarity mattered more than either of them realized. Their earliest interactions remained awkward, of course. Myrtle still reacted dramatically to perceived insults and interruptions. Harry often felt uncomfortable around her because of her intense emotions and tendency to invade privacy without warning. Yet unlike many students, Harry rarely mocked her directly, and Myrtle, starved for attention that was not openly cruel, became fascinated by him almost immediately. The Triwizard Tournament brought them closer together in strange ways. During Harry's 4th year at Hogwarts, the ancient magical competition returned to the castle after centuries of dangerous history and long absence. Students from Beauxbatons and Durmstrang arrived beneath stormy skies, while excitement spread through every corridor of Hogwarts. Banners changed magically above the Great Hall. Rumors filled the common rooms late into the evening. Even ghosts drifted eagerly through conversations discussing champions and dragons. Myrtle watched all of this from the edges of the castle, as she always had. But Harry Potter soon found himself unexpectedly connected to her world. After his name emerged from the Goblet of Fire, Harry became trapped inside another kind of isolation. Students whispered about him constantly. Many believed he had cheated to enter the tournament illegally. Others viewed him with suspicion or resentment. Friendships strained beneath the pressure of sudden, unwanted attention. Myrtle understood emotional isolation instinctively. Perhaps that explains why she responded to Harry differently from most students. Beneath the fame and tournament spectacle, she recognized someone carrying loneliness inside him. The prefect's bathroom became the center of their growing connection. As a Triwizard champion, Harry received access to the luxurious bathroom hidden behind a portrait on the 5th floor. Unlike Myrtle's abandoned second-floor refuge, the prefect's bathroom felt magnificent, almost beyond belief. White marble surfaces gleamed beneath candlelight. Hundreds of golden taps lined the enormous sunken bath. Colored bubbles drifted across steaming water, while enchanted windows reflected shifting light. To Myrtle, the room represented everything elegant and socially important within Hogwarts life. And because the plumbing connected throughout the castle, she discovered Harry there eventually. Their conversations inside the prefect's bathroom carried an unusual emotional tone compared to Myrtle's interactions with most students. Harry often seemed embarrassed or uncertain around her, yet he still listened when she spoke. He did not flee immediately from her sadness. He answered questions politely, even while clearly uncomfortable. For Myrtle, this level of attention felt extraordinary. Lonely people often develop deep attachments quickly because small kindnesses carry enormous emotional weight. Harry's simple willingness to speak with her respectfully became meaningful far beyond what he intended. Meanwhile, Harry himself struggled desperately with the clue hidden inside the golden egg from the first Triwizard task. The egg emitted terrible screeching noises whenever opened above water, confusing and frustrating him completely. Other students offered little useful advice. Teachers remained frustratingly mysterious. Myrtle unexpectedly became helpful. She told Harry to place the egg underwater while inside the bath, revealing the hidden merpeople song connected to the second task. It was one of the few moments in decades where Myrtle contributed something genuinely important to Hogwarts events, rather than merely haunting corridors or flooding bathrooms. That mattered deeply to her. For perhaps the first time since her death, Myrtle felt useful, rather than simply tolerated. The sadness of these scenes lies partly in how clearly Myrtle longed for ordinary companionship. She flirted awkwardly with Harry. She lingered near him during conversations. She seemed delighted simply by being included in someone else's concerns, however briefly. Yet because Myrtle remained emotionally trapped in adolescence, these interactions also carried uncomfortable intensity. She lacked the emotional maturity that normally develops across adulthood. Decades had passed physically around her without truly changing her inner world. So her fascination with Harry mixed loneliness, immaturity, and desperate need together in confusing ways. Harry responded with awkward sympathy rather than cruelty. That distinction mattered enormously. Most students either mocked Myrtle openly or ignored her entirely. Harry instead treated her like a person even when he found her behavior strange. The difference between being laughed at and merely being awkward around someone can feel enormous to lonely individuals. The prefect's bathroom scenes also revealed how desperately Myrtle still wanted connection to Hogwarts life itself. The Triwizard Tournament transformed the castle into a place of excitement and international attention once again. Students discussed dragons, merpeople, and dangerous magical tasks endlessly. Myrtle inserted herself into those conversations eagerly because they made her feel included in something larger than her bathroom and grief. At times, she almost sounded hopeful, not truly happy perhaps, because ghosts rarely seem capable of sustained happiness, but momentarily animated by attention and purpose. She advised Harry, asked questions about the tournament, drifted through the warm steam of the prefect's bathroom, while candlelight reflected across marble walls. For brief moments, Myrtle resembled an ordinary Hogwarts student again, rather than merely a tragic ghost. Yet even these connections carried melancholy beneath them. Harry eventually left the bathroom and returned to his life among the living. He still attended classes, argued with friends, worried about exams, and dreamed about the future. Myrtle remained behind afterward, inside the pipes and abandoned rooms of the castle. Ghosts can approach life without ever truly rejoining it. That separation defined everything about Myrtle's existence. Still, her involvement in the Triwizard Tournament changed how some readers and students viewed her. Until then, Myrtle largely existed within Hogwarts' memory as comic relief or an inconvenient haunting. During Harry's fourth year, however, she briefly became something more complex, lonely, helpful, awkwardly vulnerable. The emotional isolation shaping her behavior became easier to recognize once Harry spent time actually speaking with her, and perhaps Myrtle herself changed slightly too. Not enough to heal, because ghosts cannot truly heal in the human sense, but enough to remember that someone had once listened to her without immediate mockery, enough to feel briefly connected again to the life of the castle surrounding her. Outside the prefect's bathroom, however, darker events continued unfolding around Harry Potter. Voldemort's shadow stretched slowly back across the wizarding world. Fear and suspicion gathered once more inside Hogwarts corridors, much as they had during Myrtle's own school years decades earlier. The castle itself seemed to remember old patterns, students whispering anxiously at night, danger hidden beneath ordinary routines, and somewhere beneath the sinks of Myrtle's abandoned bathroom, the Chamber of Secrets still waited silently beneath the ancient stone of Hogwarts. When the Chamber of Secrets opened again during Harry Potter's second year, Hogwarts changed almost overnight. The fear spreading through the castle felt strangely familiar, as though the ancient school itself remembered what had happened 50 years earlier. Corridors emptied earlier in the evenings. Students traveled together in nervous groups. Whispered conversations filled the great hall beneath floating candles, while owls carried anxious letters between frightened families in the castle. For Myrtle Warren, the atmosphere must have felt hauntingly close to memory. The same tension drifted through the stone corridors. The same rumors spread between students. And somewhere beneath the school, the same monster moved once more through ancient pipes hidden inside the walls. Yet this time, Myrtle remained present to witness everything. Harry Potter had already encountered the diary of Tom Riddle without understanding its true nature. Ginny Weasley, lonely and overwhelmed during her first year at Hogwarts, slowly fell under the diary's influence, while the memory of Riddle manipulated her carefully from within its pages. Through Ginny, the chamber reopened exactly as Riddle had once reopened it himself decades earlier. The castle responded almost immediately. Messages appeared written across walls in dripping paint. Students discovered petrified rather than dead, spared only because none looked directly into the basilisk's eyes. Still, terror spread quickly, because everyone recognized the implication hidden behind the attacks. The Chamber of Secrets had returned. Most students knew only fragments of the original story. Over decades, the truth surrounding Myrtle's death had blurred into legend and rumor. Younger children repeated stories about hidden monsters without fully believing them. Older students treated the chamber more like a frightening fairy tale attached to Hogwarts history. Now the legend stood breathing inside the castle once again. Myrtle watched the fear grow from inside her abandoned bathroom. The second-floor corridor outside her door became increasingly empty as students avoided the area entirely. Rain tapped softly against the windows overlooking the grounds, while whispers echoed through the castle day and night. Professors escorted groups between classes. Dumbledore himself carried visible concern beneath his calm exterior. And beneath Myrtle's sinks, the hidden entrance remained exactly where it had always been. There is something deeply tragic about how close Myrtle remained to the truth for half a century without fully understanding it. She haunted the bathroom endlessly, drifted through its pipes, flooded its sinks during emotional outbursts, yet never realized the chamber itself rested directly below her. Only fragments of memory survived clearly inside her mind. The yellow eyes, the strange voice speaking before her death, the shock of suddenly dying before understanding what she had seen. When Harry and Ron eventually entered Myrtle's bathroom seeking answers, the scene carried strange, emotional weight. Myrtle recognized Harry already from the Triwizard Tournament and from his earlier kindness toward her. he was one of the few students who treated her like a person, rather than merely a nuisance haunting a bathroom. That mattered now more than ever. Harry and Ron themselves had grown desperate by this point. The attacks inside Hogwarts continued worsening. Students feared the school might close entirely. Ginny Weasley had disappeared into the chamber itself, while teachers and ministry officials stumbled blindly through theories and suspicion. The atmosphere inside the castle mirrored the fear surrounding Myrtle's original death almost exactly. Once again, Hogwarts searched for answers without understanding the true danger beneath its foundations. And once again, Myrtle stood emotionally near the center of events. When Harry asked Myrtle directly about her death, she responded with a mixture of drama, bitterness, and vulnerability characteristic of her personality. Decades had passed, yet emotionally, she still spoke like the lonely teenage girl who died inside the bathroom. She described Olive Hornby teasing her, described hiding in the bathroom to cry, described hearing a boy speaking strangely outside the stall, and finally, described seeing a pair of enormous yellow eyes before dying instantly. That memory became one of the most important clues in all of Hogwarts history. The sadness of the scene lies partly in how long Myrtle carried this information alone, without anyone truly listening carefully enough. Students avoided her. Teachers dismissed her as emotionally unstable. Generations passed treating her as comic relief, while the truth about her death remained hidden inside her memory the entire time. Now at last, someone listened seriously. Harry recognized immediately that Myrtle's description matched the attacks occurring throughout Hogwarts. The victims were not dying because none looked directly into the monster's eyes. Reflections, ghosts, cameras, and mirrors had protected them accidentally from direct contact. Myrtle alone had seen the basilisk fully, and suddenly the abandoned bathroom transformed from a place of nuisance and sadness into the key to understanding everything. The hidden sink itself revealed the truth soon afterward. Harry noticed the tiny snake engraved upon one of the faucets, something overlooked for decades, because students simply did not expect bathrooms to conceal ancient magical chambers. Speaking Parseltongue, before the sink caused the entrance to open once again, revealing the dark passage descending beneath Hogwarts. Imagine what Myrtle must have felt watching this happen. For 50 years she drifted through this room, believing it existed only as the site of her suffering and death. Now the very floor beneath her bathroom opened to reveal the hidden truth behind everything. The chamber had always been there. The monster had always been real. And Tom Riddle, the admired student wandering calmly through Hogwarts during her childhood, had been responsible from the beginning. Perhaps Myrtle finally understood the shape of her own tragedy fully in that moment. The lonely girl, mocked for crying, had unknowingly become the first victim of Voldemort himself. Harry and Ron descended into the chamber soon afterward, while Myrtle remained above. Yet emotionally, she remained tied to the events unfolding below, more deeply than almost anyone else inside Hogwarts. The chamber represented the place where her life ended, and where the truth about her death finally emerged into the open after decades of misunderstanding. Meanwhile, the castle above drifted through terrified uncertainty once again. Students packed belongings, fearing Hogwarts might close permanently. Teachers argued quietly in corridors. Rain and darkness pressed against the windows while fear spread through every common room and staircase. History repeated itself inside the ancient school. But this time, something changed. Harry Potter listened to the forgotten ghost no one else truly valued. And because of that, Myrtle Warren finally became more than simply the crying spirit haunting a bathroom. She became essential to uncovering the hidden truth beneath Hogwarts itself. There is quiet beauty in that transformation. the girl ignored while alive, mocked while dead, dismissed for decades as irritating and dramatic, ultimately carried the memory that allowed the Chamber of Secrets to be found at last. And somewhere deep beneath the castle, Harry Potter now moved through ancient tunnels toward the monster that had stolen Myrtle Warren's life half a century earlier. After the Chamber of Secrets was finally opened and destroyed during Harry Potter's second year, the story of Myrtle Warren changed forever inside Hogwarts history. For decades, she had existed mostly as an unpleasant ghost, haunting a bathroom few students wanted to enter. Her death belonged to rumor more than memory. Children whispered about Moaning Myrtle the way they whispered about hidden passages or cursed classrooms, treating her tragedy as another strange detail woven into the life of the castle. But once the truth emerged, Myrtle's place within Hogwarts history became impossible to ignore. She was not merely a ghost. She was the first known victim of Voldemort. That realization transformed the meaning of her entire story. Tom Riddle's memory inside the diary revealed at last what truly happened during the original opening of the chamber. The brilliant prefect, admired by professors, had secretly unleashed Salazar Slytherin's basilisk against the school while manipulating everyone around him with frightening ease. And Myrtle Warren, lonely and forgotten even while alive, had stood directly at the beginning of that darkness. The connection reaches deeper still when viewed across the full history of Voldemort's rise. Myrtle's death did not simply accompany Riddle's transformation into Voldemort. It helped make that transformation possible. Using her murder, Riddle created his first Horcrux through the diary that later possessed Ginny Weasley decades afterward. That fact gives Myrtle's story extraordinary weight within the larger history of the wizarding world. Without Myrtle's death, the diary Horcrux would never have existed. Without the diary, the chamber might never have reopened during Harry Potter's second year. Without reopening the chamber, Harry might not have learned so early about Voldemort's past, Horcruxes, and the strange connection binding him to Tom Riddle himself. A lonely girl crying inside a bathroom became linked invisibly to the eventual downfall of one of the darkest wizards in history. Yet the tragedy remains because Myrtle herself never truly benefited from any of it. History often treats ordinary victims strangely. Great wars and dark eras become organized around famous names while quieter lives disappear into footnotes. Voldemort's rise filled books, ministry records, and magical history lessons. Harry Potter became legendary across the wizarding world. Myrtle remained mostly the crying ghost in the bathroom. Even after the chamber reopened and the truth surfaced, students still laughed at her dramatic sobbing or avoided her because they found her awkward and exhausting. Knowledge of her importance did not suddenly heal decades of emotional isolation. Perhaps nothing truly could. Still, something changed subtly after Harry Potter listened to her seriously. For the first time in many years, Myrtle had helped solve a mystery central to Hogwarts itself. She was no longer merely haunting the site of a forgotten crime. She carried part of the truth nobody else possessed. There is quiet dignity in that. The forgotten student dismissed for decades ultimately held the memory that allowed the Chamber of Secrets to be uncovered at last. And the bathroom itself changed too. Before Harry's second year, students viewed the second-floor bathroom mostly with annoyance or amusement. Afterward, the room became permanently tied to one of the most important events in Hogwarts history. Professors and older students alike now understood what rested beneath the sinks for half a century. The chamber had always existed there. The basilisk had always slept below, and Myrtle Warren had died directly above one of the darkest secrets inside the castle. That knowledge reshaped the emotional atmosphere surrounding the room forever. What once seemed merely inconvenient or gloomy now carried genuine historical gravity. The bathroom became not only Myrtle's territory, but also a place where Hogwarts itself nearly fell twice beneath the legacy of Salazar Slytherin. For Myrtle personally, however, life after the chamber reopened likely remained emotionally complicated. Ghosts cannot move forward easily. Even when truth emerges, they remain tied to the emotional realities existing at the moment of death. Myrtle finally understood who killed her and why, yet understanding alone could not erase decades of loneliness or bitterness. She still drifted through the same pipes and mirrors, carrying the same insecurities that shaped her while alive. But perhaps some small piece of her suffering gained recognition at last. Students now spoke about Myrtle differently sometimes. Not always kindly, because teenagers remain teenagers even inside magical castles, but differently enough that her story carried sorrow rather than mere irritation. She became connected to Voldemort's history, to Harry Potter's victory, and to the hidden survival of Hogwarts itself. There is irony in this transformation. While alive, Myrtle desperately wanted attention and significance inside the social world of Hogwarts. She longed to matter to other students in ways beyond ridicule, yet only after death did history finally notice her. And even then, the attention came through tragedy. The castle itself seemed to preserve that sadness naturally. Hogwarts remembers things. The ancient stone corridors carried centuries of memory within them, long before Myrtle was born. Portraits watched generations rise and disappear. Ghosts drifted endlessly through halls filled with echoes of old wars, romances, betrayals, and forgotten students. Myrtle became part of that memory permanently now. Somewhere beneath ordinary lessons and Quidditch matches, Hogwarts always carried the truth that a frightened Ravenclaw girl once opened a bathroom stall door and saw death looking back at her through yellow eyes. And somewhere within the larger story of Voldemort, Myrtle's presence remained quietly essential. The diary Horcrux itself reflected this connection strangely. Riddle poured part of his soul into the object through Myrtle's murder, binding her unknowingly to his pursuit of immortality. The same diary later manipulated Ginny Weasley, reopened the chamber, and nearly killed another lonely child decades afterward. Myrtle's death echoed outward across generations. That pattern reveals something important about Voldemort himself. His rise depended constantly on exploiting vulnerable and isolated people. Myrtle Warren, Ginny Weasley, even Severus Snape and Peter Pettigrew carried wounds. Voldemort manipulated carefully for his own purposes. Myrtle was among the first. Perhaps that is why her story feels so deeply tragic compared to many other Hogwarts ghosts. She never sought greatness or adventure. She was not a hero making noble sacrifices. She was simply vulnerable in a place where vulnerability went unnoticed until it was too late. The magical grandeur surrounding Hogwarts can sometimes obscure this truth. The castle dazzles with enchanted ceilings, hidden chambers, moving staircases, and ancient magic. Yet beneath all that wonder lived ordinary children carrying ordinary emotional pain. Myrtle Warren represented one of them. A girl bullied for crying, a student hiding inside bathrooms, a lonely child, no adult fully protected. And because Hogwarts failed to see her suffering clearly enough while she lived, she remained there after death, haunting the same corridors endlessly. Even Harry Potter's victory over the basilisk could not fully free her from that fate. The monster died. The chamber closed. Voldemort's diary was destroyed. Yet Myrtle herself remained drifting through the bathroom afterward, because ghosts cannot simply move on once unfinished emotion defines them completely. Still, her story gained meaning beyond humiliation at last. The lonely ghost students mocked between classes became part of the deeper hidden history of Hogwarts. Her memory connected directly to Voldemort's first murder, to the reopening of the chamber, and to Harry Potter's survival against one of the oldest monsters in the wizarding world. And somewhere inside the castle, beneath floating candles and ancient stone, Myrtle Warren continued watching new generations arrive each autumn, while carrying quietly one of Hogwarts' saddest truths. For most students at Hogwarts, Moaning Myrtle remained a joke. She was the ghost who cried too loudly inside the bathroom, the ghost who flooded sinks whenever someone upset her, the ghost who appeared suddenly from toilets and complained endlessly about her miserable life. Generations of children rolled their eyes at the sound of her sobbing, drifting through the second-floor corridor. And perhaps that is the final sadness of her story. Not simply that she died young, but that even after death, so few people truly saw her clearly. The magical world often remembers its heroes and villains in enormous detail. Books filled entire shelves about Albus Dumbledore, Voldemort, Harry Potter, and Grindelwald. Great battles became legends retold for decades beneath floating candles and enchanted ceilings. Yet the quieter tragedies of ordinary people faded easily into the background. Myrtle Warren was one of those quiet tragedies. Before she became a ghost, she was simply a lonely child, struggling inside a school too large and emotionally unforgiving for someone as sensitive as she was. She cried easily, felt humiliation deeply, needed kindness more than many around her realized. None of those qualities made her weak in any moral sense. They simply made her vulnerable. And Hogwarts, for all its beauty and wonder, often failed vulnerable students. The castle protected ancient magic more carefully than emotional suffering. Professors noticed dangerous creatures, cursed objects, and dark spells quickly enough. Yet loneliness moved quietly through corridors unnoticed for years at a time. Children suffered privately behind dormitory curtains or inside abandoned bathrooms, while the great institutions surrounding them continued forward almost unchanged. Myrtle spent years hiding inside the second-floor bathroom because she felt safer there than among her classmates. No teacher seems to have fully understood how unhappy she had become. No adult truly intervened before isolation hardened into despair. And when death finally came, it arrived not during heroic sacrifice or great adventure, but during an ordinary moment of emotional pain. Myrtle Warren died because she opened a stall door while crying after another student mocked her glasses. That truth remains devastating precisely because it feels so small. History usually expects dramatic endings, yet real suffering often grows from ordinary cruelty, repeated slowly over time. Olive Hornby likely never imagined her teasing would become attached forever to a murder tied to Voldemort himself. To Olive, the insults may have seemed temporary and childish, but children carry emotional wounds more deeply than adults often remember. Myrtle carried hers into death itself. And after death, the world continued misunderstanding her. Students laughed at her dramatic behavior without recognizing that emotionally, she remained frozen at the age she died. Ghosts at Hogwarts did not mature the way living people do. Myrtle never experienced adulthood, healing, or emotional distance from her pain. She remained permanently trapped inside the insecurities of adolescence. Imagine existing for 50 years without growing beyond your worst emotional moments, without learning healthier ways to connect, without discovering confidence or peace. That was Myrtle's existence inside Hogwarts, her strange behavior towards students, her desperate need for attention. Even her invasions of privacy all emerged partly from profound loneliness, stretched endlessly across decades. She wanted desperately to matter to someone because invisibility had wounded her deeply, long before death ever arrived. The second-floor bathroom became both prison and sanctuary, a place where she suffered, a place where she remained. Even after Harry Potter uncovered the truth about the Chamber of Secrets, Myrtle herself stayed emotionally bound to the castle. The basilisk died, Voldemort's diary was destroyed, the hidden chamber beneath the sinks closed once more. Yet Myrtle continued drifting through the same damp air beneath dripping pipes and fogged mirrors. Ghosts remain because something inside them cannot let go. Perhaps Myrtle stayed because Hogwarts was the only home she ever truly knew, despite all the pain it caused her. Or perhaps she remained because loneliness itself became too deeply rooted inside her identity to imagine anything beyond it. The castle certainly remembered her. Hogwarts has always carried memory strangely. Every corridor contains traces of past students and forgotten years. Portraits whisper old stories beside moving staircases, while ghosts drift through walls older than most magical governments. The school remembers triumphs and disasters equally beneath its enchanted ceilings, and somewhere among all those memories remains the lonely Ravenclaw girl who opened a bathroom stall door and saw yellow eyes staring back at her from the darkness. Future students would continue hearing her cries echoing faintly through the pipes. Some would laugh nervously, others would feel pity. A few perhaps would pause long enough to wonder who Myrtle Warren truly was before she became Moaning Myrtle. That question matters, because beneath the comedy and haunting, beneath the flooded bathrooms and dramatic sobbing, existed a child who simply wanted friendship and safety inside a castle that never fully gave her either one. The grandeur of Hogwarts sometimes hides these quieter truths. The school dazzles with magic and legend so powerful that individual suffering can disappear against the scale of it all. Yet castles are built not only from stone and enchantments, but from the lives of the people moving through them. Some of those lives shine brightly in history, others fade into lonely corners. Myrtle Warren became both forgotten and unforgettable at the same time. And perhaps somewhere inside the old castle, during quiet rainy evenings when the corridors empty and candlelight flickers softly against ancient walls, the sound of her crying still drifts upward through the pipes beneath Hogwarts. Like the echo of a sadness the school itself never fully learned how to heal. And so, somewhere deep within Hogwarts Castle, beneath the drifting candles of the Great Hall and the endless movement of staircases worn smooth by centuries of footsteps, Myrtle Warren still remains. The rain still taps softly against the windows overlooking the Black Lake. Water still murmurs through ancient pipes hidden inside the walls. And in the quiet hours after most students have fallen asleep, the sound of distant crying may still echo faintly through the second-floor corridor. For many, she was only Moaning Myrtle, the unhappy ghost haunting an abandoned bathroom. But behind the laughter and complaints was a lonely girl who never truly found peace, either in life or after it. Her story became tangled forever with the darkest secrets of Hogwarts, with Tom Riddle, the Chamber of Secrets, and the long shadow of Voldemort himself. Yet beneath all the magic and legend, Myrtle's story remained painfully human. A child who wanted kindness, a student who wanted belonging, a voice hidden beneath the noise of a castle that moved on too quickly to notice her until it was far too late.